Mmm. Mmm. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 2023 Gabe Awards. This is a show that I do every single year for the last couple of years now, where I discuss some of my favorite games that came out over the year. And not only that, but we'll also be talking a bit about games that I first played for my first time this year. First of all, let's say the thing that's going to be in everyone's end of year discussion. Man, what a year it was for games. Actually, it really was, though. In years past, when it came to the Gabe Awards, I struggled to usually come up with a list that's more than 5 games for the new category that I do, for games that are like new this year, right? This year I had a lot. I think I had 14 or 15 total games that were new this year. And for me, that's unprecedented, especially lately. But let's go ahead and get into things. So this year during the Gabe Awards, I'll be covering, of course, the games that I played for the very first time this year, being things that didn't come out in this year, but things that I took a look at on stream. And this is very specifically first things. So with streams like Twilight Princess or something like that, those aren't making an appearance on this list because I've played those games millions of times. If you want to hear my thoughts about those, just watch those streams, right? And then, of course, we have the release relay, which is my category for games that actually came out this year. So, without further ado, let's get started with Gabe's Firsts. I'm also going to be manually controlling a music playlist, just like I did last year. So forgive me while I sift through things. But at number 10, we have Pikmin 2. Now, Pikmin 2 is a game. I like this game. This is a good one. I ended up having some problems when it came towards the end of the game. Particularly the difficulty of the game itself kind of gets like bonkers insanity. But despite that, I really enjoyed the game itself. Pikmin 1 was a game that I played. I enjoyed it. It was fine. You know, I liked Pikmin 1. But I wasn't, super into it. Pikmin 3, on the other hand, that made an appearance on last year's show, and I love Pikmin 3, right? So I went with an open mind into Pikmin 2, hoping it would be something I would enjoy a little closer to Pikmin 3. And for the most part, I would say, yeah, I did. There are some problems that I have with it, though, being I played this originally on the Wii U release, and I have played a little bit of the Switch version, which came out after my stream had already finished for the game. But the Switch version, as I've played, is a lot nicer, and you don't have to deal with motion controls. Everyone that I always hear talk about Pikmin 2 is always like, Pikmin 2 is like at its best on the Wii. And thankfully, if you feel that way, I think the Switch version does have the motion controls. But personally, there was a lot of frustration. There was a lot of me throwing Pikmin off of the side of a cliff when that was not my intention. There was a lot of just like I'm pointing at the screen and then it gets desynced for whatever reason. That wasn't great, but that's not really the game's fault so much as it is the space that I'm recording Pikmin from, right? So, and this has since changed since I streamed Pikmin 2. That was at my old place. If I were to stream that in my new setup, would it be any different? I don't really know. It might. I can't really say for sure. But here's what I will say about Pikmin 2. it introduces this thing called caves, which wasn't in Pikmin 1, wasn't in Pikmin 3. So that was the big mystery going into this game before I had played it. And, you know, we may or may not be talking about Pikmin 4 later on in the show, but, you know, I'll say the caves in 2 in particular also was another element of the game I wasn't super huge on, but I ended up coming around to it a little bit more through like retrospect. In the moment, there were several moments where the game had basically just like the most bullshit randomly generated dungeons that you could ever find, where you just like spawn in and oh oops, guess all your Pikmin are dying because of a random bomb that fell from the ceiling. And some people fucking love that shit. I wasn't overly negative towards it, but I definitely, you know, I had some problems with it. So that's why Pikmin 2 particularly lands at number 10 for me. But this seems like a lot of negativity right now, but truthfully, I think the game does a lot right, as far as I'm concerned. Pikmin 1 was like, what, 5-6 hours? It has its charm. It has this like arcadey kind of feel to it. But Pikmin 2 is like a 20-hour game, from what I remember of it. I don't actually know. It might have been shorter than that. But it took me, what, 10, 11 streams to get through, and the day were like full-length streams, so alright, this game was much longer than Pikmin 1. And a lot of that is the dungeons themselves. Some of them take a very long time, which can be a good thing, but that's also something I guess you should keep in mind should you be getting into the game. Pikmin 3 was a very short game. Pikmin 1, like I said, also was pretty short. So going into this game and it being like as long as it was kind of insane. But I ended up enjoying it for the most part. I like the Piccolopedia a lot. That was really fun to read, and I was really happy to see it back in Pikmin 4. And as I understand, the Piccolopedia was added to the deluxe version of Pikmin 3, but I didn't really take very much of a look at it because I don't know why exactly, but I didn't when I played Pikmin 3 initially. And here we are with Pikmin 2's Piccolopedia, and I ended up reading pretty much every entry. I know I read all of the monsters, and I think I read about all of the treasures from Olimar's perspective, and then I read all of Louie's things as well. But there's also like the ship does like sales pitches for some of the treasures. I didn't read all that. Some of it wasn't too interesting, and maybe I could have gotten a list of some of the better ones, but for what it was worth, I enjoyed it. Also, Pikmin 2 was the game that introduced the Water Wraith, and so actually, no, Pikmin 2 is the worst game I've ever played. That's why it's in my top 10 of the year. No, truthfully though, I really did enjoy this game, and I would recommend the Switch version a lot. I played it a little bit, and I was going to do a video like I did for Pikmin 1 on it, but ultimately it kind of came down to me not really getting around to it. And then when I did, I actually did record like 15 minutes, and as a joke I put myself in the Water Wraith cave, and then I realized that was an awful idea. Because even without the motion controls, the Water Wraith is infuriating. Seriously, fuck that guy. I hate him. He's disgusting. Awful creature. Never hang out with the Water Wraith. Alright? Disgusting. Alright, so that was Pikmin 2. Thank you. We're gonna move on now. I'm just gonna kind of go through this. I guess this year chat's gonna be a little slow, but that's fine. I'm just gonna kind of go through things. If people show up, I'm happy to, discuss with them. But if I'm just talking to a wall here, I guess I'll just keep going. So for number 9, we have, as soon as the music starts, I'll start talking about it. There it is. I couldn't get a good capture going for this for this like slideshow that I have going on here. So you're just gonna have to see the direct feed from the stream back in the day. But we have Rhythm Heaven, the original, or also known as Rhythm Heaven Gold in Japan. Technically not the original, but it was the first the States got. And it shows in a lot of ways. I'll say Rhythm Heaven itself, last year when I played Fever and Megamix, I really, really enjoyed it. And then I get around to playing this game, and it was still pretty damn good. You know? I enjoyed it for what it's worth. Sorry, I'm like really having a hard time talking today. Fuck. What can I say about the original Rhythm Heaven, or the second one, I guess, that I didn't say on stream? I'll say getting perfects in Rhythm Heaven Gold is a lot harder than it was in Megamix. And again, some people are gonna really like that about it. And as I've learned, there are certain games where I really do like it when it's a harder experience. But Rhythm Heaven kind of wasn't one of those. I enjoyed just being like adequate at the game. I didn't need to necessarily show off how good I was at the game itself. And I still enjoyed myself. But, you know, it's a rhythm game. It's Rhythm Heaven game. So it had really fantastic music in it the whole way through. And honestly, I just, you know, I can't really say a whole lot more about it other than I really enjoyed it. Some of the mini games, of course, are absolutely just fucking ass. Like, I never wanted this one that's on screen right now. I don't ever want to do that one again in my life. It wasn't as bad as Remix 10 from Fever. Most of the game, that is to say. But even then, I like what the game did with being a vertical game on the DS, though. You don't see very many of those, so capturing it was kind of weird. But other than that, you know, I forget sometimes that the DS itself had these like weird sideways perspectives from time to time, right? So other than that, I guess I don't really have too much more to say about this game. Great soundtrack, good mini games, obviously made by the WarioWare devs. So if you like WarioWare and you haven't played Rhythm Heaven, even if you think you're not into rhythm games, I would still be like, maybe you should try this one. Because it doesn't, I mean, it absolutely is a rhythm game through and through, but it doesn't feel like it at all times, you know? These are my awards. Yes, that's right. These are the Gabe Awards, right here. Sorry, if I miss any YouTube chat messages, it's because I have a new monitor set up on my end, and obviously the stream overlay can only show the Twitch chat, and there is no one in the Twitch chat right now, I don't think. But yeah, this was a great game. I recommend this one if it ever comes to NSO. Like if they ever put DS games on NSO, then yeah. I kind of hope the first, like the real first game, the GBA one, comes to NSO one day. But alright, that's Rhythm Heaven Gold. We're gonna move on now to my number 8 game. As soon as the music loads, we'll switch. In my number 8 slot, we are going to be talking about a little hat. You know, you ever heard of putting a hat on a hat? Also, fuck, I forgot to turn the music back up. The music started playing on my end, and then I forgot to mix it back up. Shit. Ruined. Well, for number 8, we're doing a hat in time. And this is kind of a cheat to put on Gabe's first in 2023. But I'm gonna put it here anyways, because when I initially played the game in 2020, I didn't beat it. I played, like, what? I know I talked about this when I streamed the game, but it was like the first world and a half or something like that. I only got like 8 timepieces total, which, you know, the game has, what was it, 25? It's not a lot compared to something like Mario 64 or Mario Sunshine, which is 120. But for what it's worth, this was still very good. I enjoyed the voice work in it. Xander Mobus doing the character on screen right now, I forget his name. ProZD did those birds in the background. That when there was voice acting, it was really well done. And then the music, of course, mostly composed by Pascal Michael Stifel. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. I know some of it was done by Grant Kirkhope, I believe, anyways, which that was cool to hear another Grant soundtrack in a lot of ways. But most of this, I think I incorrectly said during the streams that this was all done by Grant. I don't believe that is true, though, as this song right now is Pascal Michael Stifel. So, great music, wonderful level design, charming characters. I like the abilities a lot, actually. In something like Mario 64 or Mario Sunshine, or even Galaxy, really any 3D Mario game, there's not really like any kind of progression. Like you have all of your abilities straight out the gates. With some exceptions. I guess there are some unlockable flood things in Sunshine. And Galaxy, I guess, had a couple of power-ups that's like, you need to do this level in order to get them. But for the most part, I would say that Mario's moveset itself doesn't really upgrade. Whereas A Hat in Time doesn't really have that. In fact, it has so many moves. It's like Mario Wonder, where you just have a bunch of badges that you switch between. But also, just like in Mario Wonder, I'll say I'm not the biggest fan of the fact that the abilities aren't just a like static upgrade. Like you'll have to make some sacrifices to have certain abilities because you only have, I think, 3 badge slots, which I'll give it credit. It's better than Wonder, which is only 1 at a time, right? But this game has, I would argue, more variety in its badges than Wonder does, so that's a positive for it. And it didn't even know Mario Wonder was a thing when it came out. Trying to think what else. There were these fun little segments like you see on screen right now, which obviously reminds me a bit of Sunshine or Galaxy, where it's just these like mini platforming challenges. 64 didn't really have that as far as 3D platformers are concerned. It was really just about like jumping around in the sandbox itself. But I like when the thing kind of turns into a course clear thing from time to time. As long as like the primary game is exploring the levels and then you have a couple of levels that are course clear, I think that's fine. 3D World itself is a good game. I enjoy that a lot. But I enjoy the open sandbox just a bit more as like the primary focus. So this struck a really nice balance. And honestly, I really recommend this one. It ran fine on Switch. I remember running into a couple of like shitty textures and, you know, models, obviously. It looks like a Switch game for what that means. There are some Switch games that don't look like Switch games, I will say that. So whatever that statement I just said means, you know, translate it to your own discretion. But it does look like a Switch game when it's running on Switch. But it's also an indie game, so like I don't really care if it looks a little shitty at times, because, you know, that's not really what I'm there for necessarily. Other than that, I don't really know if I have much else to add. Hat Kid, the main character itself, is pretty adorable in a lot of ways. The boss fights were interesting, fun. And yeah, the worlds themselves, very unique. There's only 5. Like I said, not a super long game. I think I did it all in 4 streams, which I probably could have done, like, if I sat there over a weekend, I could probably beat this whole game in 1 sitting or 2 sittings over a weekend. Should I, like, wake up 10 a.m. and start playing like right away. It's not too long, but it's charming. I super recommend it, and overall, very positive reaction from me to the video game known as A Hat in Time. All right, so for number 7 on the Gabe's First in 2023, we have Metroid Fusion. Now, reminder, these are, right now we're talking about the games that are my first game, or my first time playing these games. Later, we'll talk about games that actually came out during the year, if you're just now arriving. But Metroid Fusion, I guess you could argue, kind of did come out this year, as it had a second re-release on the Switch Online, which is where I first played it all the way through. Believe it or not, though, I actually own this game physically and tried playing it as a kid, and so I guess in a lot of ways, like I had time, this is kind of a cheat to put on this list, but once again, I didn't beat it, and nor did I get very far. I think I only got a few minutes into it as a kid. So, Metroid Fusion is a very good game. Not my favorite Metroid game by any stretch of the imagination. I played Dread this year, and quite frankly, I did enjoy Dread more when I streamed that. But this was still enjoyable in a lot of ways as a first-time experience. It's way more story-focused than other Metroid games. I mean, even Dread, like, has, you know, it has some scenes, it has, like, actual cutscenes, but I feel like Adam in this one delivers a lot more, not necessarily exposition, but he kind of guides you around a bit more and tells you, like, a little more deliberately where to go. So, in that respect, it's more handheldy. Get it? Because it was on the Game Boy Advance. It's a lot more of a hand-holding type of game than other Metroid games tend to be, but I still really enjoyed it. You know, the bosses, once again, the bosses were unique. The bosses were enjoyable. Ridley was loud, very loud. And the music was all right. I didn't walk away really remembering any of this game's soundtrack, I will say, which is a bit of a shame because some Metroid games have really, really good soundtracks. Super Metroid, Metroid Prime 1 and 2, you know, all fantastic soundtracks. This game was all right. It set the tone, set the ambience well enough, and it was good. I like exploring the space station a lot. There was different, like, zones in the space station from what I remember, and it wasn't until the end of the game when things started to, like, link together, but that was pretty cool. I remember that. So, other than that, as for the story of the game, you know, it's Metroid. You don't need an immense story. There's not, like, huge plot twists, but at the same time, there kind of are. You know, Samus crashes her ship for, I don't remember why she kind of failed at the steering wheel there. Maybe she was drunk. I don't remember. There might have been a reason that the game gave me. I don't actually remember. But in general, you know, it was good. I enjoyed it. And this is another game that I would recommend. All right, well, that's pretty much all I have for that one as well. I'm kind of zipping through this a lot faster than I thought I was going to, but I guess that is how it is. So for number 6, we have this video game right here. Y'all ever heard of Reverb? We just started Halo 2 yesterday, and here we are. So Halo Combat Evolved is a game I played for the very first time this year. It is a first-person shooter game that is the poster child in a lot of ways of Microsoft. am surprised in myself to say I, the avid, lifelong Nintendo fan, the Nintendo defender I've been known to some, ended up really enjoying this game. A lot more than I thought I would. I thought it was just gonna be like gritty first-person shooter like Call of Duty or like Gears of War, and it was gonna be just like, you know, too like realistic and boring for me to really sink my teeth into. Because I'm gonna be honest, you know, I like fantastical. I like games that are a bit silly, and Halo somehow is, despite being an M-rated game, it kind of still feels like a game for kids, which makes a lot more sense now that I realize so many of my friends growing up loved Halo when we were younger. You know, you can do silly shit like drive a car through a building, as you see on screen right now. You can just run over the aliens, and then, you know, while you're doing that, they're all making really weird noises. They're going, I love the grunts, by the way. Like, I didn't think that I would care about any of the, like, enemies from this game, but the grunts themselves, peak enemy design. Love them. And the noises that they make. As for the Master Chief Collection itself, I played this on PC, and when I played Halo 1, at least, I ran into no technical issues, no graphical issues. It all ran great. You can press the tab button to switch like instantly between old graphic and new graphic. You can fall through the ground when a random enemy attacks you. It's great. It's a good game. Honestly, more games need to have like falling through the ground technology. It told a pretty good story. I don't think Halo 1 necessarily will end up being my favorite Halo game, but it was a good entry point. Like I said yesterday, we literally just started Halo 2. So I kind of already feel like I'm enjoying Halo 2 more than this game, but I've only streamed it once, so I don't really have enough to go off of to give you like a full review on it right now. But other than that, you know, I like the Chief. I like the voice acting. The voice acting is surprisingly really good. The humor is on point. You know, you found the cat. You know, has anyone seen the goose? All that stuff. It had a lot more humor behind it than I was really expecting. So, if you or a loved one have turned down this game ever playing it before because, I don't know, maybe you only owned Nintendo consoles growing up like myself, I would say, get the fuck over yourself! No. I would say, go ahead and give this a try. You might like it, you might not. If you already know you don't like first-person shooters for whatever your reason may be, then this is a first-person shooter through and through. So you'll have to, you know, get around that angle. So if you don't like FPS games, then you're probably not going to like Halo. But, you know, if you play Metroid Prime, for example, in my instance, that was my experience. I was like comparing that a lot. And this feels bigger than Metroid Prime as far as like the environments are concerned. But in general, it was pretty enjoyable. I have to loop this song. I didn't have a second song ready for this one. I'll say a couple of the songs from this game are pretty good, but none of it really stood out to me after I was done playing the game. Like, I didn't be like, oh, let me get that song again. You know, Combat Evolved OST number 025, whatever that one was. This one's 026, so there's surely one before it. I enjoy Halo, though, and I will be greatly looking forward to playing the rest of the series sometime in the future. Alrighty. So why don't we move on to a game? Now I'm really cheating. All right. In some ways, I might feel like this category for Gabe's First in 2023 was a bit rushed, but it really wasn't, because I still enjoyed these games and really deliberated a lot over where these games go. But this next one is one that I haven't actually finished, but I'm going to put it on the list anyways. And that is this game right here. Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga. The Bowser's Minions 3DS version is what I played. Now, I feel like I've said this probably about 4 or 5 different times at this point. So hopefully everyone knows, but in case you didn't, the reason why I didn't finish this game is not because I didn't enjoy it. It is because my 3DS capture broke, and there's not a whole lot I can do about that at the moment. And I honestly thought I was going to have that fixed by now. Even now, I'm like, man, I don't know when or if I'm going to get to fixing that. Because it's going to cost me, like, $500, like, truth be told, to fix the capture card. So, but sorrowness aside, the game itself, pretty fucking good. I streamed the Bowser's Inside Story remake 2 years ago. I think it was, or 3, whatever. Whatever that was, I did it. You may have seen it. And I thought that remake was overly hated. And with this remake, I kind of see where some of those people were coming from. But in general, I still want to commend, you know, some people are just going to say, oh, because it looks nice, it doesn't mean it's a better remake. And I agree. But it does look really nice from time to time. And not only that, the music. Oh my God, I love this game's soundtrack so much. Even though I had never finished this game, I was already pretty damn familiar with the game's soundtrack. And so here I am reporting to you that the game's soundtrack is pretty damn good. I believe a lot of it was done by Yoko Shimomura, same composer as Mario RPG, or as probably more people know them from Kingdom Hearts fame. I think there may have been other composers involved with this game, I'm not too sure. I need to realize more and more that not all the time is it just a single composer that works on these games, yet I only ever credit like one of them. Like Xenoblade, I always hype the fuck out of Yasunori Mitsuda. Homeboy didn't do most of that soundtrack, yet I always hype him up over like Ace Plus or the other guy, who I unfortunately can't remember his name in the moment. That's embarrassing. But hey, let's talk about this game for a moment. From what I did play of it, I played, from what I understand to be like 2/3 of the game. So I was close to being done. I was probably like 3 total streams away from finishing it. It's a little longer than Mario RPG, which is like a 15, 16 hour game plus the post game. This one is like 25 hours, I think, from what I remember of it. But I don't know, maybe it's longer, maybe it's shorter. It's not really the point. The point is, it's a good game. I like the humor, I like the animation, and most importantly, I like the game. What Mario RPG did, this game takes to the next level, I think. Paper Mario may have originally been called Mario RPG 2 in early development, but this really does feel more Mario RPG than Paper Mario does, and I can say that now, having played Mario RPG. And that'll be an interesting little discussion to go back to when I do inevitably, hopefully get back to this game. Because when I first started playing it, I obviously hadn't played Mario RPG yet. So, you know, I've evolved since then. I've become more powerful. I'm basically God right now, right? I like the scenario writing. I like the combat system a lot. The bro moves add a lot. And the timing on the moves make a lot more sense. I think in the Mario RPG remake, we'll talk about this in a bit, but I find that it was absolutely necessary for them to add the little blips that are like, hey, this is when you're supposed to be pressing the A button. Because without those, it's cryptic as shit and makes no fucking sense. But Mario and Luigi, you press the button for your action commands right when you think you should. I mean, the game does tell you, you know, when the timing is, but like, it all makes sense for the most part. And the bro moves are where you really get tested on that, and it's not just like one A button press. You get, I guess, multiple QTEs in a row, which some people are like, whatever, QTEs are kind of lame. But in my opinion, at least, you know, my professional opinion that you came here to listen to, I think with an RPG, turn-based RPG, having a little bit of something to do during the fights, rather than making it just press button, watch animation, makes it far more enjoyable to experience for myself. Now, I do want to say, you know, not everything about this remake was the best. You know, they did cut Gino. They did, you know, remove some charm from certain character. Like, they made the big Koopas into just, well, instead of being big Koopa, they're just big Koopa, if you understand. So that's, you know, a little sad. I don't really know why they had to, like, sanitize this stuff so much. There may have been other small changes, like character designs, that were, like, washed out a little bit. I don't really know. This feels more like taking the original Superstar Saga and putting the Dream Team's skin over the game. But it's still pretty good, considering how, I mean, when this remake came out back in the day, the only other real way to play Superstar Saga was the Wii U Virtual Console. Unless you had the original, of course. This remake was fine. I get the arguments for the Bowser's Inside Story remake where people are like, this remake really wasn't necessary because the game was already playable on the 3DS. You know, the original. But, devil's advocate, you know, Nintendo doesn't, well, no game company just continues to endlessly produce physical copies of games after, you know, their lifetime sales are over, right? I mean, I guess maybe some companies do. I'm not really here to fact check myself right now, but, you know, besides that, it's, you know, the remakes are another way to get the game into hands of people who didn't get the original opportunity to play through it, like myself. So I enjoy it. It was a game that I had played previously through the Wii U Virtual Console, but decided to play this version because I liked the Bowser's Inside Story remake so much. If I never get around to fixing my 3DS and I decide that I will want to continue streaming this game, I guess I would start over with the GBA version. That's now available on NSO, which more people are going to tell you to play that version anyway. It's harder. It's, you know, it has Geno. It has these other elements. There's like a bone Donkey Kong that was also cut in the remake for no reason. That one is appalling. It was just replaced by a regular skeleton, I think. Or just like, I think it was replaced by no one. You just talk, like, there's like an NPC off screen talking to you, I think, actually. So that's a bit weird coming from this. But the base game itself is so damn good that I just had to put it here. And it may not be my favorite in the Mario and Luigi series. Even when I'm done with it, I don't necessarily top Bowser's Inside Story for me. It is still a very good game, and there's a reason why everyone talks so fondly about this game. But alright, enough about that boring-ass Mario and Luigi RPG. Why don't we talk about a real gamer's RPG? Alright? This is an RPG that was made by gamers, for gamers, with the express purpose of gaming. I am, of course, talking about one and only video game. Miitopia. That's right. fucking Metopia made the list of all things. This is like baby games to the ultimate maximum degree. How did this game make the list? Well, I'll tell you one thing. The game is actually good. If you can believe it. Now, I'm not yet done with this game yet, but I'm pretty confident in my placement of this game, in that this is right where it belongs. It's got that same level of charm that you would come to expect if you played Tomodachi Life, while being an actual game this time instead of just like listening in on like conversations. I mean, there's still plenty of that, but now it's an RPG. It is Baby's first RPG, though. I would say between this and the last game I talked about, I kind of enjoy playing Superstar Saga a bit more than this. And, you know, where I am in the game right now is close to the end, but not quite there yet, right? And I am starting to kind of feel a little bit of a burnout from it, just because it gets samey after a while. But the game's so damn charming and came out of nowhere. And not to mention, like with Superstar Saga, the remake of the game got the game in my hands when I ordinarily had missed out on it when it first came out. Now, unlike Superstar Saga, this remake is pretty much the definitive version of the game. I would see not a whole lot of reason to play the original version. As I've been told, there's not a lot of immense, like, negative changes. I'm sure there are a couple that, like, diehard fans would know. But as far as I'm concerned, you know, the Mii Maker is far more detailed. It's insane what you can make with the Miis in this game. Like, you can see here, I have my own damn profile picture as, like, a character. And the Rhythm Heaven Wrestler is here. And Sephiroth. And the Skull Kid, and King Harkinian from Zelda CDI, and like a picture of like a squirrel is one of the Miis that I have and didn't end up using. There's so much you can do with that Mii Maker, and I want to see them implement this into, you know, the base Switch. I think if you did that, then people would be making all kinds of crazy shit, but maybe also at the same time it's for the best, because you can literally make anything for better or for worse. And as far as this game is concerned, the extremely detailed Mii editor doesn't seem to be like online compatible. Like, you can download other people's Miis, which is how the majority of my playthrough is, but you need to like find them deliberately by code. If you're getting random Miis from online, it's based on like the 3DS or like the original Mii editor. They'll have none of the like fancy makeup stuff. So like, unfortunately, you can't just run into a wild cock and balls with your playthrough unless you deliberately download it. So that's your own fault if you have one of those in your game. But the game itself is enjoyable. I do feel like in a lot of ways I would really enjoy to be able to have more control over the character from time to time. But also it would kind of lengthen the game significantly more. And the game is a lot longer than I thought it was. This is now up to 15 stream parts, which is insane. Everything that I saw about the game said it was 40 hours. I'm like 56 hours in and not yet done with the base game. So I don't know if it's because I'm reading all the dialogue out loud, I'm deliberating a bit more. I mean, I guess I realized a little bit that I am playing the game slow, but I don't really know where I'm playing it slowly compared to other people. But, you know, how many games can you say that you could have a party with Sephiroth, Taboo from Smash Brawl, and Petey Piranha? Meanwhile, like, the Great Sage Jesus, also known as This, is right there, smiling at you, being a small little whooper. Not many games. I'm sure you could probably maybe do that in The Sims with mods, but that's the only other thing I can think of. So, it might seem like a bit of a weird game to most. And, you know, I don't necessarily think if you don't stream that I would fully recommend it. I think me streaming the game enhances the experience I have with it. I may have put it down if I wasn't streaming it, but still, it's a good game. I would recommend it if you are a streamer, definitely. This is a great stream game, and in general, it's a pretty good game. Maybe don't sleep on this one. But alright, it's time to move on to number 3. Now we're getting into the real good shit, alright? So for number 3 this year, I have an indie game called Dead Cells. The music is really quiet, but I assure you it's playing. Dead Cells was something I played towards the beginning of the year, and I almost forgot that I played this. But then when I remembered it, I immediately booted the game up and had an insanely good time. Also, you can see me sifting for footage here. Don't worry about that. That's not part of the clip, okay? You didn't see that. But, what can I say about Dead Cells? Well, for one, it's like a Metroidvania, roguelike game. And that's already 2 things that I'm super interested in. Hades itself is like one of my favorite games of all time. And that kind of came out of nowhere for me. I played that game way late. And the same can kind of be said about Dead Cells. I don't think I like it quite as much as Hades. In fact, I definitely don't. But I still really enjoy it. It's hard as shit, which, you know, this is an instance of me enjoying the difficulty of the game. It adds a lot to it. It doesn't necessarily feel like bullshit. I feel like all of the deaths that happen in this game are my own damn fault. The controls are responsive. You know, if I am, like, trying too hard to be aggressive against an enemy and then it kills me, that's my own damn fault. But there are times when the game gets, like, insanely, like, addicting. If you get a really good weapon like I have on screen right now, look at this. Look at how it's melting this boss. This is, like, one of the final boss options that you have. And, like, I'm just melting these dudes' HP away just from this one weapon. I think I was able to beat Death from Castlevania without getting hit once with that very same weapon in that run. And on that note, this game also got Castlevania DLC, which was kind of what inspired me to check it out in the first place. I've never played too much Castlevania except for the NES games, which is weird that that would be an interest for me because I actually don't like the NES Castlevania games very much. But I like Metroid. I like the Metroidvania type thing, right? So this getting an actual crossover with Vania is kind of sick as fuck. It still gets some updates, and the Dead Cells devs, as they showed off in the actual Game Awards, are making a new game, and I'm really fucking excited for that. That'll be a day 1 play from me. Whether or not that's streamed, you know, that'll be its own separate discussion, of course, but I'm gonna play that game day 1. Can't remember the name of it because I'm a shitty human being, but I'm really looking forward to it. Also, how many games have you played where you can just select your diet? This is the only one I can think of. So you can, like, select between, like, Half-Life recovery food items. You can select between cheese, which is what I played with, of course, because Gabe eats cheese. I think there was, like, meat, there was vegetarian, there were all kinds of random options, and it's like, why is this in the game? No reason, it's just fun. And that just speaks to the quality of it, honestly. It's really addicting to get, you know, see how far you can get with certain runs. You know, of course, you can get real cocky, though, and you can open up cursed treasure chests that'll make things one-shot you, which is the bane of my existence. I fucking hate cursed chests. I'll never open them again deliberately because I've lost too many good runs to them. But, you know, in general, if you haven't played Dead Cells, I would say you should definitely check this game. It's worth your time. it's not too expensive from what I remember. I don't know. It's an indie game, so it shouldn't be 60, but I don't know. Maybe it is. But, you know, look at that. Look at how Dracula melts my HP. Think about how many good games there are that can just melt your HP like that. Not very many. Not very many. All right, it's time for number 2. For number 2 this year, I have Katamari Damacy Reroll. The Switch version, I don't think it really makes too much of a difference. As I understand, it's pretty good on whatever version you play of this. It's pretty identical. Switch version didn't feel like it had compromises. This is not a game that I would say it looks like a Switch game in the same way that A Hat in Time did. But it's kind of more because it just has like this own style to it. It's weird as fuck. The premise of this game is you like roll around and you collect a bunch of random shit. And you make this big ball of Katamari, which, if I remember correctly, that's like a real Japanese word for like just like a ball of like stuff or something. I don't remember, but you collect crabs, you collect people, you collect cats, you collect paintbrushes, any like object, you just roll it around and you collect it. It's a simple premise for a strange game that doesn't last too long, doesn't overstay its welcome, and might I also add, has weirdly, really good music. Like, this song is pretty good in a lot of ways, but then there's like Lonely Rolling Star, which I really deliberated putting for the song here. But I had to go with this one because it's iconic. It's the Katamari theme itself. But you can make your Katamari be absolutely massive, as you see here in this footage here. This whole thing on screen was a level, like 4 levels before this one, and you were super tiny. You were the size of an ant to this level. And now you can grow the Katamari so big that you're able to collect the very buildings of that level. And that's not even as big as it gets. Like, the final level in this game, I think you get, like, what? Like, up to, I want to say, like, 100 meters? It's insane. But other than that, you know, it's just a game about rolling little fellas around. I would really recommend more people play this game. I don't think it sold too bad. I think the remake did better than the original, I think. But even still, this game deserves to be in the hands of more people, just for the sake of just having something to enjoy. I thought about just playing it just again randomly one day, and then that was how I was like, okay, this game needs to be on my year-end discussion, because like, if I can think about replaying a game, then that's immediately a good sign for me, because lately I have not been replaying games a lot lately. So, it's weird as hell. Great music. I don't think I have a whole lot more to say about it, but, you know, check it out. Do it. Alright, so that's Katamari Damacy. So, for my number 1 game, for the very first time I played it, didn't come out this year, of course, but there was a remake announced for this next game. I don't know when that's coming necessarily, but, of course, I am talking about Metal Gear Solid 3. Don't know why the music started at that spot, but that's fine. So, Metal Gear is a bit of a complicated subject for me. I really like these games, but am also extremely frustrated by them. Kojima himself, not to get too shitty necessarily, but I kind of feel like the dude hypes up his own games to be a lot bigger than they are. Like with Death Stranding, apparently being like its own genre, it's the first Strand-like game, and then his other new game being, you know, this whole thing where it needs to take up 6 minutes of the Game Awards presentation. A lot of Kojima's direction kind of comes off as a bit pretentious to me. And I'm sorry if that sounds a bit shitty, but it comes out of love when I say this, because the games really are fantastic, and it has some of the best storytelling and voice acting I've ever seen in any game. But it's also convoluted as shit to play. The gameplay itself, I have a lot of problems with, particularly in MGS 1 and 4. I have a lot of problems with those games. And 2. This game I had the least amount of troubles with. So thankfully there's that, but I mean, I don't think I'm necessarily the worst when it comes to first-person shooters. You know, I did okay in my Halo 1 playthrough. But when I'm playing a first-person shooter with a controller, then I'm not as good. So the final boss, took me over an hour. I'll tell you what saps the ending of a game more than anything is spending 1 hour on the final boss. Just because it's that much of a wall. Now, this wasn't entirely a skill issue. I mean, yes, definitely. But reviewing the footage, the boss was also just bullshit. She had like random iframes, and by random I mean a bullshit amount of them, where it's like, I'm literally shooting you, how are you not taking any damage? That kind of stuff. And there's a lot of that in the MGS series. This game, it's mostly just her and a couple of other bosses. I think of the Fear, or not the Fear. Wait, is that his name? Who's this astronaut? Yeah, that's the Fear, I think. Regardless, that guy, fuck him. His son of a bitch! Yeah, that guy. Fuck his fight. I didn't like that much at all. But, I mean, the direction, the cinematography is incredible. The music is immensely good. Not necessarily one of my favorite soundtracks of all time, but very appropriate and very good for what it's worth. And where the game does show its humor, it shows it really well. It's campy as all hell in a lot of moments. But that just adds to the experience, really, more than anything. I think, this is one of those games where it's like, if you go your whole life and you say, oh, I love video games, and you don't see through this game to the end, it's like, well, I get it if you didn't like the game, I guess, but if you play the game and you don't finish it, like you just like, I'll get back to it, and then you never do, that's a shame. I mean, I know it happens to some people, but it's a shame. This game is really worth experiencing, I think. And, you know, I will say it is an M-rated game, so if that's something that you're wary about, you know, it's violent. There are guns. Oh no, Snake may or may not lose an eyeball. But it's still really fucking good, and this is definitely my favorite Metal Gear game. 4 did not make the cut here on this list because 4 was more frustrating for me than it was satisfying. It tells a really good story, but man, did the bosses in MGS 4 really piss me off. So, this game didn't really do that so much. I can really only think of the final boss and the Pain. That's really it. Or the Fear. Wait, who's the... No, the Pain is the Bees guy. He was fine, I guess. Who else was there? There was the Pain, the Fear, the End. I hear a lot of people dislike him. I skipped his fight because I did the snipe shot early thing. Thanks to chat letting me know about that was even a thing. Thank you. I saw the fight. Yeah, I probably would have hated that, but I didn't actually do that fight, so I guess I can't hate something I never played. Obviously, later down the line, the story in MGS4 becomes a lot more contrived. This game is pretty digestible. You don't need to play MGS 1 or 2 to play this game because, well, it's a prequel, actually. There's like a couple of moments where it's like, okay, Ocelot appears on screen and Ocelot himself kind of just is a character in this game. He's prominent, but you know, having played MGS 1 and 2 and seeing what Ocelot becomes later down the line makes you see this guy in his, you know, early 20s or however old he is here, and you're like, oh, this bastard fucking does some shit later on. Right? So I've really enjoyed the game. There was a lot of Easter eggs I realized I missed too. Like there's like a scene, speaking of Ocelot, where you can like kill Ocelot while he's like knocked out. And then if you do that, like Colonel Sanders, yep, the guy from KFC, he comes in and does a codec call. No, Colonel, what's his name from MGS 1 and 2? Roy Campbell. Colonel Campbell calls you and is like, Snake, you can't do that. This will create a time paradox. And then, well, you do it, and then the screen says time paradox. So that's good. The game has a good sense of humor. I just think some of the boss fights and the way you're intended to figure out how to beat them is just so unnecessarily contrived. Like, it's like, how would I have ever known to do this? And, you know, I understand for people who, like, grew up with the game or already know what to do, it's not too bad. I feel like the MGS series might be a series that may be better on, like, repeat playthroughs than it is on first playthrough. Like, enjoying the story is good for first playthrough, but the gameplay itself maybe is more enjoyable after you actually know the boss's patterns and stuff like that. But other than that, I can't really say much more other than to say this was an absolute joy to play. You know, despite my problems that I still had with the game, the story was just that good that I just immensely recommend it. So, there you have it. That was my top games of 2023. Now, on to some honorable mentions real quick. I won't spend long on this, but these right here are the games that didn't make the list, but I just wanted to talk about, just for a little bit, each of them. Project Cross Zone, I started the year playing. My friend Tony gifted it to me for Christmas last year, not in 2023, but in 2022. So I played it at the very beginning of this year and enjoyed the game, mostly. It was long, it got repetitive. I didn't finish it because I did get bored of it, admittedly. But, you know, it's still a good game. One day I would like to finish that game, whether it be on stream, on a recording, or maybe just on my own. I don't know, that's sounding more and more appealing to me lately, just playing games on my own again. But, you know, Project Cross Zone was really good. Punch Out! No, we want to talk about games that are, like, unnecessarily contrived with their difficulty in the case of MGS. Sometimes. Punch Out is the quintessential example of NES difficulty being just absolutely fucking bullshit. And I will admit, after you know what to do, a lot of those fights aren't that bad. I got my ass handed to me by Glass Joe, to the point where, like, I was really discouraged from continuing to play the game. But, you know, through the sheer will of determination or maybe insanity, I decided to continue playing the game. And eventually, I got to the point where Glass Joe lived up to his name. Shredded that dude like glass, shatter him. You know, I can do Glass Joe now without getting hit once. Watch my part 1 stream of that, and you'll never believe me, because it's some of the most embarrassing shit you have ever seen. But that's just kind of how NES games were back in the day. So, the NES Punch-Out was alright. I enjoy its animations. It has some other problems that are associated with it, unrelated to its difficulty, more related to character portrayals in the time it came out. I won't go into that much more than just saying that. I acknowledge it. Don't really love that angle of the game, but as I understand, Punch-Out Wii pretty much like solves that like wholesale. So at some point in my life, I really want to play Punch-Out Wii. I think I would enjoy that game a lot. Super Punch-Out may be a pass, however. I was able to bear through the original Punch-Out, but I hear Super Punch-Out isn't much different. So, you know, sure, there's certain characters I'll miss out on that I think are exclusive to it. I know they also make an appearance in Punch-Out Wii, some of them though. So, I might not miss out on all of them. But, in general, I like Punch-Out. Doom was another game that I had an embarrassing first stream of. This year was full of a lot of embarrassing streams where I just felt awkward playing these games, and people would come in to the chat and be like, "Why are you so bad?" Like there was one guy who came into the chat. It was like, "Oh, bro, I love Doom," and then he started talking to me about how he got through the game in 20 minutes, like the whole game, and it was like. For me, it took me 2 streams to beat Doom. So, you know, if you know what you're doing, it's not a long game. But the original Doom, we are talking about the original, by the way. The one that runs on, like, calculators and shit. Not the, like, the 2016 Doom. Maybe one day I'll play that, but I don't know if I'm necessarily fully, down. I more or less checked this game out because it's like, okay. This year was full of me trying so many games that I ordinarily told myself I wouldn't have liked. Halo was one of those, right? Doom, I played... Sorry if you hear noises, by the way. I'm just fidgeting with things because I don't have a controller in my hands, but... Doom itself was another one of those games where it's like, this game has a certain legacy to it. I just have to check it out. And I played it, and, well, the first 15 minutes of Doom, I spent wandering around the first room thinking there was nothing I could do. And it turns out there was a button on a wall that I thought I had pressed, but I had pressed the wrong button to confirm it. Now, I will argue that was mostly me being dumb, but also, man, if you didn't have manuals back in the day, and this is the same with Punch-Out, maybe I'm just spoiled by modern games being a bit hand-holdy, and other people hate this about modern games, but for me, it's what, you know, makes me so adverse to playing so many old games. It's like, without a manual, there's not a lot. You just have to try shit, and a lot of it won't make any sense. So, having played Doom for the very first time in 2023 with no one... it wasn't until like an hour or so into the stream that people started showing up. Because, you know, that's just what happens with me being a small streamer. Happens, you know, it's happening today, too. You know, it's cool. That's kind of my lot with being a small streamer. I just have to accept that sometimes, right? Some people just aren't interested in whatever I'm streaming, whatever. You know, it's cool. So, like... That first 15 minutes, I felt super awkward. I felt embarrassed for not figuring it out. And then, like, I looked it up, I think, and then I was like, what? Or, like, maybe I don't remember how I eventually got past it, but, like, I remember, like, walking away from that being like, oh, is this a tale of what's to come? And so, it kind of was, in some ways. I was bad at it. But... you know, I played through it. I enjoyed it for what it was worth. I didn't do, like, all of everything. In fact, I did very little of the game. Just did, like, the first campaign. I think there's, like, 3 of them in the Switch version of Doom that I played. I also don't know if that has any thing to do with it. Maybe it would have made more sense if I played on PC. But I had it on Switch because it was, like, on sale for $1. Which I was able to get for free with, like, the gold Switch points. So I was like, why not buy this, right? So, there you go. Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes. This was a game that I really liked at first, and then kind of fell off. Admittedly, a lot of it got stale because it wasn't what I was expecting out of the game. I went into the game, I don't know if this was just misinformation that was given to me. Maybe I just came up with the wrong concept of the game initially. I don't really know. But I thought the game was going to be like 1-to-1 Fire Emblem 3 Houses, but just with a warrior's skin instead of being the tactical game, which I was cool with when I initially started streaming it. That's what I was expecting out of it, because I was trying to find a Fire Emblem game that I wanted to play. I was in a Fire Emblem mood for like the storytelling, but I ended up getting into the game, and to what should have been most people's like, actually this makes the game more worth it, it was not quite the same story. There was a lot of changes to the story itself. Shez, for example, is your main character instead of Byleth. Byleth actually can talk, and Byleth is like, I guess, sort of an antagonist. I don't know. I did the Blue Lions route. I did not finish the game, and ended up streaming it just because it turned into one of those things that every time I put it on the CSR and I scheduled it on YouTube, I'd be like, well, what am I streaming today? What am I streaming today? Oh, it's 3 Hopes. Well, I guess I gotta do it. I gotta get through it somehow. And then I realized, wait, if I'm not enjoying it and not looking forward to it, why am I playing it? So I stopped playing it. And when I made this list, I initially hoped to put it here and talk about it in a light where I'm like, okay, well, you know, now I've played the game a bit more off stream, but truth be told, I've been so busy with preparing this stream and also other things that I didn't really get around to getting back to the game, unfortunately. But here's what I'll say about it. You know, I like how I, by the way, said that these will be short. This has been longer than some of the things that I had to talk about actually on the list, but I'll be short. Warriors gameplay is Warriors gameplay. It'll get repetitive. I can be in the mood for a Warriors game from time to time, but I guess I just wasn't in the mood as much as I thought I was. The thing that kind of sucked for me the most, and I think this is what maybe kind of hurt the game more than anything, was the menuing and like preparing for battle was, I'm just gonna say, unnecessarily complex, right? The music was good in the game, but the menus itself was, notice how I recovered from noticing the music was weird and mentioned the music, and then anyways, ADHD motherfuckers. The menus in the game was pretty good. Wait, no. Oh god. No, see, ADHD motherfuckers. Alright, let's reset. Okay, we're back. The menus were kind of bad, is what I mean to say. You had to like walk around town, and there was a fast travel thing to get around the base. And, you know, it's fine, but like, man, I'll tell you what, did I want to just go from story mission to story mission, but there was so much other shit I had to do to keep like everyone up to pace. Like, that's a problem in Xenoblade as well. But, you know, with Xenoblade, I can forgive it because it's kind of one of my favorite game series. I'm not as attached to Fire Emblem, so when I navigate the menus like that, I really understand where people are coming from when they talk about how they don't like that about Xenoblade. Because I didn't like it at all in 3 Hopes. But I think 3 Hopes is personally a bit more complex and in a kind of bad way, where you have to walk around an actual town in order to like get to different menus, and it's like, man, I just want to, like, upgrade my supports. Like, I really was just expecting a relatively basic retelling of Three Houses. But the game wanted to do its own thing, and in a lot of ways, I should respect that. I should. But I don't know, it just didn't fully click with me. So I don't know. Celeste, I have a lot less to say. Because I talked about it, I think, a little bit on the last year. But I didn't have a full and conclusive grasp on the entire game yet when I talked about it. So now I do. And Celeste is a good platformer. Right, that's it. Recommend it. It's another indie game. You know, it's hard as shit. Maybe to a lesser fun extent than some of the other hard video games, but not really on the level of Punch-Out. It was like somewhere between, like, Dead Cells and, like, MGS3 levels of difficulty. Where it's like, it was good. Most of the deaths did feel like my own fault. I don't remember really walking away from the game being frustrated, but I do remember there were a lot of deaths. You can get through the game a lot faster than I did. There was a lot of deaths. Dragon Ball FighterZ was like my first foray into really trying to get into fighting games. Ended up buying a fight stick for it, and then played it, enjoyed it, mostly. Didn't get hooked into it because I am still pretty bad at fighting games. Someone one time asked me why did I spell Fight Night wrong in the logo for Friday Fight Night, and that's because I'm bad at fighting games. That's the shtick, right? That's my gimmick. Dragon Ball FighterZ did not help me get better at fighting games, but I did play it enough, and maybe I got a little marginally better than I did without having played it. But roster's cool. I like the animation. Looks really good on PC. Enjoyed it. It has rollback now. Don't really know what that means entirely because I'm not that invested in it, but it has rollback, so thank God for that. I'll go really quick through these last three. Crypt of the Necrodancer, good rhythm game. Hard as shit. I'd say there were more deaths that I felt weren't my fault in Crypt of the Necrodancer than in Celeste, for example. Still not the Punch-Out levels of difficulty, necessarily. But, in general, I would say that, you know, Crypt of the Necrodancer was enjoyable. I liked it. Shovel Knight Spectre Torment was not that difficult. It was a good time. Great music. Awesome visuals. Can't recommend Shovel Knight enough as a general thing. Spectre of Torment was like the one campaign from it that I had never finished. So I was really glad to stream and finish that this year. And really enjoyed that. And then last but not least, for the honorable mentions, Fast RMX was a Switch launch title. Well, not launch title. I think it was like a couple weeks late to the Switch launch. But it's an F-Zero-like, and I have learned within the last year or two that I really, really like F-Zero. GX happens to be, basically at this point, one of my top 5 favorite games of all time. I think I can lock that in and definitively say that. And Fast RMX is a really good F-Zero GX-like game. It's not quite the same game, but it's an indie F-Zero game that looks phenomenal. I don't even know. Like, if you told me that that game was AAA, like, that game looks as good, I would argue, in a lot of ways, to Mario Kart 8. I might even argue it looks better than Mario Kart 8. And I'm being serious when I say that. Fast RMX was so good looking. And it was made by, like what, 5 guys? Burgers and fries? Something like that. It was really good. You switch between, like, being in an orange mode and blue mode. And, you know, you need to match the color of, like, the boosts on the ground to grab the boosts. There is crashing out, though you do come back. But I kind of like it, because it's its own spin. You also have to collect these orbs in order to do your boost. So it's not like a health meter boost system like F-Zero, but it does its own thing. And it makes me excited for what maybe Aero GPX could be as well, which isn't one-to-one F-Zero, but it makes its own spin on it. I streamed this game only twice, Fast RMX, but even still, they were really fun streams. And, you know, maybe one day I'd like to go back to that, off stream or what have you. It's a really good one. So, yeah, that is the top 10 of my of the games that I played that didn't come out this year. Real quick, we'll run through them one more time, and then we'll start with the next category. We had Pikmin 2 at number 10, Rhythm Heaven Gold at number 9, A Hat in Time at number 8, Metroid Fusion at number 7, Halo Combat Evolved at number 6, Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga plus Bowser's Minions. Oh, I did forget to mention the Bowser's Minions angle when I talked about this game. It's fine. I didn't play very much of it. I only got to do 2 streams of it. I enjoyed it maybe a little less than the Bowser Jr. mode in other remake, but it's still good. Miitopia at number 4, Dead Cells at number 3, Katamari Damacy Reroll at number 2, and Metal Gear Solid 3 at number 1. All right. Well, I believe it's time to start talking about the release relay. So in this category, these are the games that actually came out this year. This is more or less what you're here for, right? These are the games that I played that came out during the course of the year. Some of them are remakes, so you could argue maybe some of them should belong in the previous category, but I'm going to count them as releases because I feel like it. No, because I think most of these remakes on here make enough changes to not just be a port. If I play just a port, I feel like I would put it in the previous category. So with that said, why don't we go ahead and start with our number 10 spot for this game, for this category. So, as soon as the music. For number 10, we have Kirby's Return to Dreamland, which I played for the very first time. I never played the original, and so this was my first time playing it. Footage, by the way, came from Nintendo of America's YouTube channel. It's the overview trailer. I put this piece of text on it so it doesn't content claimed. I don't have any recorded footage of this game because I actually played this one offline with my friends Fish, Ellie, and Tony. 4-player co-op the whole way through. Really enjoyed this game, actually. I don't think I would call this my favorite Kirby game by any stretch of the imagination, but it's pretty damn solid. I didn't play any other Kirby games this year somehow. I intended to do Amazing Mirror, but those plans kind of fell through. Maybe next year. But as for this game itself, I think playing it 4-player was a fun enough experience, you know. The amount of fun that you have from it kind of comes from who you're playing with in a lot of ways. Much like other multiplayer game. And I'll say with this game, 4 players just kind of feels a little overkill. It's like the New Soup games, but unlike New Super Mario Brothers, it's not like in New Super Mario Bros. I almost find it to be like kind of not fun to play the game 4 players personally. This was still fun to play 4 players. It's just, you know, Kirby's a lot slower pace of a game. And so, you know, you can have one player do like all the puzzles for you, and then otherwise you're all just doing the platforming at the same time. So, playing multiplayer platforming games, I'm learning, is like, it's fun. I enjoy it. But it's not my ideal way to play, personally. Now, what I will say about this game great music, awesome visuals. Can I just say, this is one of the best looking Switch games, even still. This one is not one of those games that looks like a Switch game necessarily. The game just oozes personality at every given corner, and I really like the outline that they put on the characters in this version of the game. And of course, they did like Kirby 64-esque King Dedede, which I really appreciate. And they put the Lego Star Wars character select screen in this game at the Merry Magoland thing, which is, as you see on screen, sort of, it's a collection of mini-games from across the whole series. So this game kind of, in a lot of ways, is a lot like Kirby Superstar, where it just has a collection of mini-games for you to play, which this is where the game is really fun as a multiplayer game. Introducing my friends to Checkerboard Chase, which somehow Ellie, the massive lifelong Kirby fan, had not really experienced Checkerboard Chase, so I was able to introduce her to that, and it's fucking awesome. It has Smash Ride, which is like the mode from, the Tops mode from Smash 3DS. Has Bomb Rally, which I forget what that's from. Kirby on the Draw, which is from Kirby Superstar Deluxe, specifically. Whole bunch of side Kirby mini-games from across the series. Every Kirby game, for some reason, always comes with like 1 or 2 extra bonus games. And this game basically has all of them for like no reason. There's the Lego Star Wars character screen that I was mentioning. There's also these like little masks that you can earn from the multiplayer. The minigame mode. And then you can just walk around as Kirby wearing like broccoli. Or like Kirby wearing Kirby. That's a thing. You can put your mask of yourself on, and then it just makes your face look whiter. I loved that. Overall, you know, of course, having not played this game, I wasn't able to like review, you know, any footage of my own to like remind myself of the experience of the game. But I ended up getting this game for Christmas, and I think I may do a replay through of this game sometime. All on my own. It would just be single player, because I do think it'll be better. I did not get to play the Magalore mode. Ellie wanted to play that on her own, which is understandable. It was her copy of the game that we all played. So, I just played through the base game, but still enjoyed it a lot, and would recommend you pick this game up if you ever see it on sale, which is a Nintendo game, so good luck on that one. But it's a good game. And you know what? If you have like a family or like maybe you have kids or whatever, it's a good game for you to play with your kids. I would say, whoops, I didn't mean to skip the song just yet. I would say it's a really good game for playing with a family, because it's not necessarily little brother mode like Tails and Sonic, but you know, with the way that the camera works and the pacing of the game, I don't know, it just feels, it feels more cozy than it does like competitive, which I guess there's some things you can compete over. Not a lot, but you know, there's enough there to keep you entertained if you wanted to do it as a game. But if it's like a thing where you're playing with friends and you have to schedule it, which was how I played through it, it was kind of a bit annoying, being an adult. This is more a personal problem than it is the game's fault, but I wouldn't necessarily say this is a game where if you have to like schedule hanging out with friends just to play through the game, it's enjoyable, but it's not fully necessary that you do that. So that's my take on Kirby's Return to Dreamland. It's worth it. I would say definitely pick it up if you have the interest. And I don't have much more else to say about it. So we're going to go ahead and move on to my number 9 slot, which this game, I can't believe is even on this list. When I started making this list, I didn't even know this game existed. I am, of course, talking about Lethal Company. Somehow, this fucking game made it to my top 10 list. And again, in a year where, might I add, I have played more new games than I ever have before. but it's so good despite that. Here's what I'm gonna say. I don't normally like to play the trendy Twitch games, especially not on stream. You know, they don't. I'm just gonna be upfront and honest with you. They don't do well as streams for me. As a small creator who averages 1 to 4 viewers per stream, anywhere in that range, this game does not do you any justice unless you are established. At least it didn't for me. I'll say the game has a really good sense of humor about it, though. And I just enjoyed playing the game. I haven't played it a metric fuck ton, necessarily. I have like 15 hours in the game or so. And of those 15 hours, I streamed it once. And it was one of my favorite streams of the year. Somehow. And like, again, I'll say, during that stream, I don't always look at my viewer numbers. In fact, I usually keep my viewer numbers hidden. Just because it can kind of fuck with me if I keep looking at it and it still says 1 or something. Just being blunt honest, right? I usually, determine if people are watching my stream based on if people are chatting. And, I went the whole stream without seeing anyone in chat. But despite that normally would, like, make me be like, oh, man, that's kind of... That bums me out, I'll admit. Despite that, I really fucking enjoyed this stream. And didn't give a fuck that the stream did nothing for me. The game is more funny than it is scary. And that's, I think, an important draw for me. Because, I'll be honest with you, I don't like horror games that much. I didn't play Resident Evil this year. I didn't play, I think Lies of P. Well, that's more like a Dark Souls-like game. But I don't really play horror games. You should know that if you know me. And this game is technically a horror game, but it comes off way more funny than it does scary. Like, I get killed by the bracken, and instead of being like, ah! I just laugh. It's good, and, I enjoy watching random clips from this game that other people have. I enjoy the modded content for this game. When I streamed the game, it was unmodded, but there's a lot of really good mods for this, like the Yippee bugs. I like that. And I really liked the Skinwalker mod, where it makes... it basically it's constantly recording you when you talk, that mod. And then when you die, or I guess when you're just not around, the monsters will play your voice that it recorded, and your voice will come out of the monsters to your friends and make them think that you're nearby, and then, oh my god, it's a fucking nutcracker or a spider or whatever. It's insane, and that is fucking terrifying. All right, I've seen some clips, like I saw a Vinesauce clip of this game where the Skinwalker mod made someone be like, turn around. And then you turn around and then there's nothing there, because it was not really the person saying that. It was the Skinwalker just taking a random clip of what they said. But yeah, this game is surprisingly good. I'll admit to you, I played Fortnite for the first time this year. That didn't make my list in any capacity, but that's definitely one of those trendy games, right? And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed Fortnite, but this is just good. And it's apparently only early access right now, so whenever it gets like more content, whether or not I stream that is one thing, but I am personally immensely looking forward to what this game becomes. I will say, at this current stage with the game, I haven't got to play it a lot, but from what I have played of it, I've already kind of started to feel like the game gets a little repetitive. The hallways and corridors are very samey. I wish there was a little bit more variety. Like, the outside exteriors Every planet, moon, is more or less pretty different and distinct. The inside is randomly generated, but I wish there was just a few more palettes. As I understand, there's only really 2. There's like the metal, like whatever, like the catwalks and stuff in the concrete facility, and then there's like one that's like a log cabin. And those are the only 2 that I've seen. Maybe there's another one, but as far as I'm aware, that's pretty much all you get. I would like it if they either added more inside facility skins, just to give some variety, or just more planets. I don't know. The game needs a little bit more variety, but it is definitely one of those games that's super enhanced depending on who you play with. But even despite that, I've played this with a lot of different people, and every time I played it, I had a great time. So, Lethal Company is this year's most surprising addition to this list for me. I'm not going to rank it high just because I haven't played it that much. And I do kind of feel like in some ways, maybe once the hype dies down, it'll be like, okay, well, it's just all right. But for what it's worth, at this current moment, I'm enjoying it so much that I really wanted to put it on this list. So, all right, onward to number 8 on this year's Game of the Year discussion. Super Mario RPG. That's right, they gave Mario a rocket-propelled grenade. Fuck yeah. So this is the Mario RPG remake, of course. Came out just a couple months ago, and I just finished it last week. And, man, is this game pretty fucking good. It's not my favorite Mario RPG, though. I even think I like Superstar Saga a bit more. You know, I was like kind of mixed and a little negative towards it at times. I do think I like Superstar Saga a little more than this, personally. But that is not to say that this is a bad game. It is anything but that. My main complaints from this game comes from as follows. 1, less than 20 hours for 100% completion. I did the super bosses. I guess I haven't done the last super boss yet, but I've done all of the other super bosses. And, you know, just 18 hours on my final save time. In some ways, this is a blessing and a curse. I was, like, kind of hoping the game would be short, and I knew the game was short going into it. But I was also, in a lot of ways, like when the game drags its ass, it really drags its ass. Even though that only usually lasts for like 15 to 20 minutes at a time, that 15-20 minutes feels like hours. And that usually just comes from going through an area and having to do combat. It is a very classical, old-school RPG. But it really does set the precedent for future Mario RPGs to come in a lot of ways, and I see that with this game. This remake that came out in 2023 ended up being one of the most faithful remakes of all time. It really only changed the overtly, like, super badly dated stuff, and the stuff that it's like, alright, well, you could argue this is a dated mechanic, but some people still like that about these games. That stuff is all intact. So, for better or worse, whatever those things may be for you, they may still be in the game, but I mean, the most notable being the inventory change is massive, and I don't see enough people talking about this. In the original game, you had like something like 10 to 20 slots of inventory, and then that was it. Nothing stacked in your inventory, as far as I'm aware, or if it did, it was very limited stacking. And in general, you couldn't hold on to many items, which kind of made the game harder. In this version of the game is made immensely easier through quality of life and just general accessibility features, which some people may not like, but I think it's for the better. I've seen the original game enough to this point to make a fully informed opinion when I say that. I think, personally speaking, that this remake is how I would have preferred to go through this game. I can see the argument when it comes to Superstar Saga and the Bowser's Inside Story remake, somewhat more for the Superstar Saga one. This one, I think this is just the definitive way to play this game. I also, I might get some shit for this, but I don't think the original version looks all that great. I kind of feel this way about Donkey Kong Country as well. I think for the time, it looked amazing. But these days, that pixel art kind of looks like shit to me. I'm sorry to be that blunt about it, but I just don't love the way it looks. This remake looks fucking phenomenal. Aside from a few frame drops that happen admittedly frequently, it is really, really good looking. The lighting in this is so good. And not to mention the music. I may not feel like this is my favorite Mario RPG, but this is definitely my favorite Mario RPG soundtrack. No doubt about it. Yoko Shimomura is a legendary composer. The original music is so good. This is like comparable to the Xenoblade Definitive Edition remastered music in my eyes. In fact, I'm gonna go a step beyond that and say that this is even more. In my eyes, I can't really even listen to a lot of the original Xenoblade music anymore without being like, yeah, but the Definitive Edition's better. And, the original is still really, really good, right? And the same could be said about this game. Though I still think I can listen to the original just because I don't have that nostalgia for it. I think for me, it's just like, it's this, like, cleaner version of the Xenoblade soundtrack that just sounds so much better, right? But this one, yeah, there's no doubt about it. This is some of Yoko Shimomura's finest work. And granted, I haven't played Kingdom Hearts, so I don't know what they sound like too much there. I've heard a little bit of it, and what I have heard, I wouldn't say personally gets to this level for me. Maybe for some, but not for me. But that is to say that this game is really fun. It's definitely worth your time. $60 is a bit steep for a 20-hour game. And that's coming from someone who doesn't necessarily think that playtime needs to, or like the price tag needs to reflect in the playtime. I think it can definitely be a deciding factor. If I recommend you Xenoblade or this, and you're like, I need something to really sink my teeth into, well, I'm going to tell you Xenoblade. But also, this year was full of games that just took fucking forever to get through. Let's be honest, having a game that was this short, it doesn't overstay its welcome. And aside from a couple of moments where I'm like, all right, I'm kind of bored of the game right now because I'm just doing combat after combat, and there aren't a lot of scenes happening right now. When the scenes are happening, they're great, they're charming. It's immensely enjoyable. I will say the writing in this game isn't as strong as other Paper Mario and Mario & Luigi. I'll argue both. I think the writing in those games is maybe a little stronger than this, and maybe that's why I don't like it as much. But I think the scenarios and what the characters do is more funny than what they actually say. Like, I don't really enjoy talking to the NPCs in this game is more what I'm getting at. Whereas in the other Mario RPGs, I kind of do, because they have something funny to say, usually. But just the general, scenario writing and, what characters do. Like, Mario, for some reason, can just morph into other people for some reason in this game, and he just can play charades and, perfectly clone himself into them. And it's never explained. It's just, it's supposed to be him explaining what's going on while still being a silent protagonist. But, it's enjoyable. I would recommend this game. The post-game content, if you want a difficult challenge. I mean, I've done all the fights. I just didn't beat the final one. I died to it, so we're going to be doing a bonus stream at some point. But I will tell you right now, that post game is really worth your time if you're looking for something challenging, because boy fucking howdy is it difficult. That booster fight is insanity. I'm not going to tell you the secret to beating it. I won't spoil that, but let's just say if you don't do what you're supposed to do in that fight, it's a full party wipe instantly with one move. And that sounds like horseshit, but in a game that's ordinarily this easy to get through, the fact that that's post-game content, not at all mandatory if you just want to get through it, I love that. I think this game, personally speaking, has the right amount of difficulty, and the quality of life changes are insanely appreciated by yours truly. So, that's Mario RPG. So why don't we go ahead and move on to number 7 this year. This year, for number 7, we have Pizza Tower.
Have you ever heard of the game called Pizza Tower? Well, you should get your head out of your ass if you haven't heard of this, and go fucking play it!
Seriously, this may be in a perfect world where like this game wasn't this year wasn't full of so many good games. This may have been a contender for the game of the year at some point. So it's surprising that it's this low on the list. But I'll give you a little insight to my personal creative process behind making the list. I usually look at all the games and I'm like, all right, what did I like more? Did I like this more? Did I like that more? XYZ. So, you know, that's just, I guess that's a compliment for what's to come, but this game is fucking insane. And anyone with a PC, this is a must fucking play. I don't care if you like platformers or not, play this goddamn game. Alright, if you absolutely fucking despise platformers, you probably won't like this game, because guess what? It's a platformer. But it is one of the best platformers of all time. But not necessarily in the same right as like Kirby or Mario. This is more like Wario Land, where it's a whole bunch of wacky scenarios, and I mean, just look at the game right now. Look at this animation style. It invokes like Ren and Stimpy in a lot of ways, and like MS Paint art in a lot of ways. And it just has this really good sense of humor to it that it's just immense. And not to mention, if you're looking for a difficult game coming hot off the heels of Mario RPG, does this game have that in spades? If you're just getting through the game, perfect level of difficulty. They struck just the right amount of balance for this to be like, okay, well, if you want the hardest experience you've ever had, it's purely bragging rights. You don't get anything like overtly like necessary for beating this game on its hardest difficulties. But this game also doesn't really have a difficulty slider. Instead, the difficulty is directly correlated to how well you perform in the game. I never really went for P ranks, but I've seen a little bit. I mean, I did an off stream, a little tiny bit. I didn't get any, but I tried. You know, I gave up because I was like, yeah, this not necessarily for me. But goddamn, if you want that difficulty, it's there for you. And can I just let me listen to the music right now? This may be, as far as original soundtracks are concerned, there is one game that I think personally beats it. Let's be honest, but you know, let's say this: out of all the brand new IPs, this is best soundtrack of the year for me. Which I guess isn't saying much, but it is at the same time. This game's music is so good, and I couldn't recommend this game enough. It's not too long. It was a 4-stream game for me. Absolutely worth every minute of it. And if you want that extra content, it's there. And apparently it had an update that I never went back and checked out. So at some point in my future, I will be checking that out. Like, undoubtedly. I may even decide to do that one on stream.
We'll just have to see about that.
But, I mean, just looking at this footage right now, I swear to God, like, I'm really tempted to boot up the game and just play it again. I'm looking at this and I'm like, I think I am gonna do that now. You know what? I'm saying this out loud. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna fucking play this game again. Not like on stream, but just on my own. Because it's really good. Can't really say much more about it other than all that. Crazy as fuck final boss. Not gonna spoil it, but love the final boss, especially the music. It just fucking play Pizza Tower. It's not a $60 game, so if that helps you buy it, then do it. Fucking... I kind of wish I backed this game, honestly. I didn't, but... It's immense. I can't believe that this isn't my number one. Because of how much I really enjoy this game. I feel like maybe I should have put it a little higher than number 7, but... You know, whatever. I'm talking my praises now. The number doesn't really matter that much. So... There you go. That's Pizza Tower, ladies and germs. Let's go ahead and move on to the real number 6. That's right. The real Slim Shady is here. And this year... Wait, that's the wrong number 6. Whoops, wrong button. Wait, what? Wait a minute. Oh, wait, fuck. I don't have the right music. Well, I just spoiled you on the next one. I don't actually have music for this. I forgot to grab this. Shit, hang on. Hang on. Let me just pull up some music for you real quick. I forgot to add it to my playlist. I thought I was ready for this. Hang on, I'm getting it. Let's try this again. Mario Wonder OST. Well, I guess I just spoiled it because I said it out loud, didn't I? Yeah, number 6 is Mario Wonder. I think maybe I like Pizza Tower a little more than this, but let's just keep it to my initial reaction, which was putting this just slightly above. And Mario Wonder is without a fucking doubt the best 2D Mario game. Yep. It is unequivocally the best 2D Mario game. You're free to disagree, of course. You know, if you have, you know, certain nostalgic attachment to the older games, I get that. Obviously, this game isn't going to have that because it just came out. But I think when I look at the whole series, and, you know, I have nostalgia for Mario World, don't get me wrong. That has been traditionally my favorite 2D Mario. That followed by Mario 2, then Mario 3. They're all like neck and neck for as good as each other in my eyes. But even then, I think that this game is just... I think it's a more enjoyable, better game than all of those. I hate to, like, you know, be dismissive necessarily about Mario 2 World and 3, but... That's just kind of my knee-jerk reaction to it. Truthfully. This game oozes personality at every given corner. I said that about Kirby, but like this goes even a step beyond that. This is one of the most charming games I have played out of the year. Maybe even ever out of a platformer. I'll say, like, DK Tropical Freeze definitely has more iconic moments and more memorable things in my recollection, but just my experience with this game was just... It was, well, I'm fairly certain I made the same fucking pun, but it lives up to the name. It was wonderful. It really was. In every, like, definition of that word. Last level kind of fucking beat the shit out of me, and I did get salty with it. Admittedly, I rage quitted the level. I did beat it, though. I don't remember if I ever talked about this, but, like, immediately first try, well, not necessarily first try, but within the first couple of tries after going back, I got it in under 20 minutes after I played the game off stream. And I really enjoyed it. Just all the way through, this game is constantly throwing new things at you. The wonder effects do get reused a couple of times, which that was a little bit disappointing to me. Initially, the first couple of worlds, if they don't reuse it, and then it's not until the end of the game where you get a couple of repeats, but I mean, even then, it didn't come off as like cheap, more as just like, oh, this is something else you can do with this same idea. More of that, but even still, I saw a couple of my friends write this game off because it's just another 2D Mario to them. And to me, you know, obviously, they're entitled to their own opinion. I'm not gonna fucking tell them, like, fuck you! How could you say this? But, like, truthfully, that breaks my heart. And to be fair, I guess the marketing is maybe responsible for that. But this game, you know, really is something special in my eyes. I guess not everyone's gonna feel that way, but man, did this game really, really blow me away with just the visuals and just, again, the personality it has. It's so weird. I love it when Mario games are weird. That's why I love the Wario Land series so much, because it's so fucking weird. That's why I liked Katamari as much as I did. I like it when games aren't just sanitized and boring and predictable. And this game was anything but that. The music was good across the board. I wouldn't say there was too many like super standouts that I'm gonna listen to like day in and day out, but there's some good songs in here. Piranha Plants on Parade. I mean, come on. Of course, that's really good. In general, the new power-ups are okay. I guess I don't... If I have something to complain about with the game, it would be that. They're not bad, but they don't stand out too much. It's just like, oh yeah, this works. This makes sense for what it's worth. I really enjoyed it though. I don't know. I could see in a world where Tears of the Kingdom and Baldur's Gate 3 didn't come out, that this would have won the Game Awards this year. I don't know what games would have been in place of those necessarily, but I personally just fucking adored this game. And I'll also say the online for it is better than the local play. I haven't experienced too much of the local play myself. Only just a little bit after I was done streaming. I played it with some folks at Thanksgiving. But, you know, fuck, it's just such a good game. I'm gonna fucking cry. Oh my god. Sorry, I got distracted. Brain fart. The online is what I was talking about, and it's really good. Basically, local play is like new soup, except you can't throw each other, which, in my opinion, is a good thing. But the multiplayer, everyone gets their own screen for online, and that is how this game should be played. Just play it at your own pace. You can exist in the levels with your friends. It's good. Is it a game that I would necessarily hop into an online session if a friend DM'd me and is like, yo, I'm playing Mario Wonder right now. Do you want to join? Considering I've already played through the game, I don't know if I would. But if it was like, hey, I'm playing Mario Wonder for the first time, do you want to play? Then I'd be like, hell yeah. Like, if they were gonna have me in the room or play online, I would choose online in a heartbeat. If that makes sense. It's a bit complicated. Like, yeah. I think I explained that to the best of my ability. I'm not fully sure what my full thoughts on that would be. I guess the situation depends. But, in general, I really want to recommend this game. If you passed on it because you think it's just another new Super Mario Brothers game, it is anything but that. And one last thing I'll touch on is the new voice direction, in my humble opinion, as someone who is really into voice acting and can be critical. I know I don't often get too critical with voice acting. I tend to generally err on the side of positivity because I know what it's like to kind of do that. Not necessarily in the same context because I'm not like the big names or whatever. I'm not trying to like group myself in a party that I don't belong in. But what I mean to say is Kevin Afghani is the new voice of Mario. And of course, I'm a little sad to see Charles Martinet retire from the role. Whether or not that was Martinet's decision on his own is not fully known to me personally. It could be that he just wants to move on, or it could be that Nintendo is being a little preemptive. I do know he said in interviews that he wanted to do Mario until the day he died. Like, I think that's a direct quote from him. As morbid as it sounds, I'm pretty sure he said that. Or at least I've seen that headline, so if that's not true, I'm gonna deflect the blame from myself and say that I read that as a headline. But I mean, I can see it in him though. At the same time, Charles Martinet is in my eyes Mario, and I still don't really know what being the Mario ambassador is, and apparently Charles Martinet doesn't either, which is hilarious to me. But you know, it's fine enough as is, and Kevin Afghani, he did a good job. I wouldn't say he blew my socks off, and wasn't. It was noticeable, definitely, that it wasn't Charles Martinet. I'm glad, and not to get. I'm gonna debate if this is really political, but I'm gonna say it anyways. Not to get political on your ass, but I'm really glad they did not choose AI over hiring a different actor. Whatever their reason for getting Martinet out of the position, I'm glad they did not choose AI. Because AI, even if it gets to a point where it can be even better than it currently is, and it's scarily good how good AI is. I just, you know, as a traditional voice actor, someone who wants to get into the field, you know, I look at the AI thing happening, and that makes me kind of be like, do I really want to get into the industry at this time? And I do. I still have that dream, but at the same time, it kind of fucking, it breaks me to see so many things, and like, this isn't AI voices necessarily, but I saw that Microsoft put out an ad, or like, was Microsoft of a specific company, to be fair, but, or sorry, of a specific country. So it wasn't like all of Microsoft, but Microsoft put out an ad that used AI generated art, and that like fucking pissed me off. All right, so there you go. Now I revealed my full stance on that. I made this political. Way to fucking go. What I mean to say beyond all of this is Kevin Afghani is a relatively unknown voice actor before this game. He did some Dragon Ball Abridged stuff, and he was in Genshin Impact, and a couple of other things, but that's more or less the extent of it, right? But the fact that Nintendo hired an abridged voice actor is huge to me, because there's a stigma in the voice direction, the voice casting scene, the community around like becoming a voice actor. You know, everything that, you know, all the classes that I take, all the teachers always say, never mention abridged in your resume. Well, guess the fuck what? Whether or not he mentioned it in his resume is one thing, I guess. But apparently a lot of casting directors, if they find out that you're in abridged, they won't necessarily blacklist you, but they're gonna make your life a lot harder to get into the industry. And I think Afghani did such a good job that I'm hoping that stigma dies. I don't see why that stigma exists, truth be told. I just don't get it. I think personally, as someone who's not involved in the scene, let's be fair, I'll admit that. Not enough anyways. I think it comes off as a little gatekeepy to me, personally. To just be like, no, if you are in a bridge series, you clearly must only be doing this as a hobby. And you know what? If they're doing it just as a hobby, but they're applying to your job, maybe they're trying to make it beyond a hobby. You ever consider that? Anyways, this discussion has moved far from being about Mario Wonder. And the point of this is to say, it's a good game, you should play it. Alright, so music mishap aside, you already know what's coming up because I started playing the wrong music. Very fucking good, Gabe. You forgot to add the Mario Wonder music to your playlist. You fucking blew it. It's time for number 5. It's F-Zero 99, everybody. Oh, did I ever have a turnaround when it came to my opinion on a game? If people watched only part 1 of my VODs of F-Zero 99, they would think I hate this game. Yeah, and this game is so good, in fact, that I actually struggled to put it this low. Once again, it's just the next games on the list are just that good. I couldn't put it higher. I couldn't. But F-Zero 99 is the single best multiplayer F-Zero game. Now, when it comes to single player content, there's not much of it. In fact, there's basically none. I, of course, don't think this is the best F-Zero game overarching. That is still GX for me. I even think I like X overarchingly more than this game. But I don't like either of those games' multiplayer modes. I think their multiplayer modes are whack. They're shams. In GX, you know, especially, it felt just kind of lame. But this is everything I could have possibly wanted F-Zero multiplayer to be, aside from being, you know, the GX engine, you know, more racers. But, I mean, this is exactly where F-Zero should be when it comes to multiplayer. GX and X, the reason why I don't like it so much is because those things are limited to 4 players multiplayer. F-Zero is built on having shitloads of racers all gunning for each other's throats. And GX especially really reinforces, you know, the fact that you're gonna fucking die if you play these, if you are in these races, right? And then this game comes along, and if you're doing a Grand Prix, when you die, you don't come back from the Grand Prix. It is a battle royale through and through. Now, each 99 race is in and of itself, you know, just a 99 race. There is ranking out from just like being too low back. In a standard 99 race, I forget about this. Maybe I'm big ego here, but it's because I don't really find myself that far back all that often. I have ranked out a couple of times, I'll admit, but it doesn't really happen that much. The game runs super well. No real internet issues or frame stutters or any of that. 99 racers on screen. I've never once had a disconnect, personally, I don't believe. I mean, maybe other people have. In fact, I have seen other people DC, but personally speaking, not once did I ever DC from a match. And for a while there, I was actually playing this game with kind of shit internet, so that is actually really good. Also pretty good considering how sorry of a state NSO is still in to this day, but alright. What more is to be said? The customization in the game is great. The soundtrack is obviously... It's... The biggest fault this game has is that it's based on mostly the original F-Zero. But what is interesting about it is that it actually is sorry, I just brain farted immensely. I had no idea where I was gonna go with that. But just different train of thought now, I guess. There's the original game. So the controls are a little different. I don't love the controls in the original F-Zero. And even when you play the game in quote-unquote classic mode, the controls are still based on the 99 engine, which thank God for that. The spin attack and the combined health meter make the biggest difference, of course, in 99 and Grand Prix modes. I think having the 3 boosts, 1 per lap in the original F-Zero is fine. You know, it's good enough. I don't love it, but the risk versus reward of spending boost, which is also your health meter, and the risk of dying is very, very real in F-Zero, is such a good, like, mechanical system. It works so well with one another. And then the Skyway system is surprisingly clever as well. I really enjoy how it is a really good comeback tool. Like, I thought it was just gonna be, like, shitty, like, whatever. It's just, you probably have a little higher top speed. No, there's tactical times to use your Skyway. You can have a full Skyway meter, but be like, it's not yet time for that, though. Because there are times where the Skyway, like, cuts out complete entire segments of the track. In Whiteland 2, Skyway is, like, OP. It skips, like, half of the fucking track. It's insane. Which is to say, it's really good. I enjoy it immensely. I don't really think I have much more to say about it other than this is definitely, without a doubt, the best F-Zero multiplayer has ever been. And I want to see the next F-Zero take from this in some kind of way. I would like the next F-Zero to be more like GX. And I think this game did really well initially, to the point where I think maybe now Nintendo is like, okay, there's interest in F-Zero. We had our new concept. Let's just make another one now, right? Fingers crossed. And before it's another 15 years before we get another F-Zero. But who knows? Maybe the future isn't so bleak after all. We'll just have to see. So, number 4. You heard that music. You might be wondering, that's not number 1? Nope. At number 4, not even top 3, we have Tears of the Kingdom. You are undoubtedly going to see this game in so many people's number 1 slot. And I'm not going to sit here and come up with a fake story that I didn't enjoy the game. Because, motherfucker, I loved this game. I just love the next 3 even more, truthfully. But what can I say about this game? First of all, Breath of the Wild is a bit of a controversial game these days. It released in a state classic to this classic Zelda fan base, the general reaction that has been happening pretty much ever since the release of Twilight Princess. I've seen it time and time again. Game comes out, last game previous to this bad, new one best game in series, 10 out of 10 reviews across the board. Couple years pass. Previous, most recent game now sucks. We need better game. That was like game from 2 game ago. And then, oof, ouchie, ouch. Game is good again once the next game comes out. So on and so forth. This is the classic Zelda cycle. And I apologize if that sounds a bit dismissive to, people's real thoughts on this. And I have complex thoughts. I'm about to get into them. But it is something that I've seen time and time again, and it's a phenomenon that I've only really seen be this true with the Zelda series. So, that said, The Legend of Zelda It's one of my favorite fucking franchises in the world. You know, it does kind of sadden me that these days, Zelda is kind of one of those like controversial games in a lot of my friend groups. Like I mentioned Zelda, and some of it is met with applause, figuratively, of course, and others is met with groans, not figuratively on that one sometimes. You know, these games can be so mixed these days, but for what it's worth, I really enjoyed my time with Tears of the Kingdom. I wouldn't have clocked 200 hours in the game if I didn't. I would have given up like I did with Fire Emblem, like I did with Project Cross Zone, you know? It happens sometimes for me. I'm willing to admit that. So, what did this game do right for me? Well, first of all, I think the new abilities are far better than what was provided to you in Breath of the Wild. Those items, if you could call them that, were a lot more situational. You know, you had Cryonis, which you could only use on water, which was used to create bridges against water. And then in a very rare couple of other examples, you can use Cryonis to, like, stop something from moving. But really, all it was there for was to make bridges. Magnesis. You grab metal objects, and you can move them. Unless I'm forgetting something, that's all you could do with Magnesis. You could, you know, pull metal chests. You know, the list of items that was compatible was large, but not immense. But you just move them around, and that's pretty much it. And then you had, what else did you have in Breath of the Wild? You had the bombs. Okay, that's pretty essential. Infinite bombs is pretty nice in Breath of the Wild. I'm not gonna lie to you and tell you that it isn't. Bombs aren't very powerful, though, in Breath of the Wild, so, you know, using them as a combat tool isn't great, but you need them to, like, blow up rocks, and it's far more efficient at doing that than, like, breaking them down, especially in a game with a durability system. We'll get into that. And so, you know, it's fine. You know, the bombs are okay. That's probably the better example out of what Breath of the Wild had. And then you had the stasis, which was you freeze something in place, whack it a bunch, and then the game applies all the physics that it would have applied all at once, which leads to things like flying off in the distance. And it seems like a glitch. It was, you know what? It doesn't seem like a glitch. It'll be clarified. I bet you it was a glitch initially by the devs, and then they were like, wait a minute, this is actually kind of awesome. And then they added that as a feature. And those are your 4 abilities that last you the whole game in Breath of the Wild. You get some abilities after beating the dungeons. The only real useful one that I would argue is like a tool would be Rivali's Gale. And then you had Mipha's Grace, Daruk's Protection, and the, forget what Urbosa's ability was called. Fury? Urbosa's Fury, yeah. Those were all fine. You know, they had their uses. They were situational. They were mostly combat related, though, so couldn't really just take advantage of them as, like, tools for puzzle solving. So, let's move on to Tears of the Kingdom. You know, I think Zelda games can kind of, in a lot of ways, be defined by their items, so that's why I'm spending so much time on this. In Tears of the Kingdom, your first ability is very essential. Well, I guess your first ability depends on where you go, but my first ability, and many other, was the, what is it fucking called? I don't actually remember, but it's what you're seeing on screen right now. Ultra Hand. That's what it's called. Thank you. Ultra Hand is Magnesis on steroids. And it is way better. First of all, you can grab any object that has physics, you can grab. So trees, you can grab the Koroks, you can grab sticks, your weapons, anything at all can be grabbed. and then you can build with them. Now, weirdly enough, this was kind of like a mixed feature in the previews for this game. A lot of people saw this and was like, ew, it's Banjo-Kazooie nuts and bolts. And you're not wrong, but you're not right about that. So, you use the ability to create machines that can last an unlimited amount of time depending on your battery life, which can be upgraded throughout the amount of time that you play the game. And then as you progress through the game, obviously you can get different types of materials and build different kinds of machines. This whole system does get a little undermined, of course, when you build the hover bike that has like infinite flight. But generally speaking, these things don't just last forever, and they're not just an end-all solution to every puzzle around the corner. So what this game does right is these things aren't really all that cumbersome to build, nor are they essential for solving any one puzzle. Now, this is also the game's downfall, because puzzle solving is what I will argue, if the items are like one major pillar of Zelda, well, the thing that the items are supporting is a very heavy roof that is puzzle solving. And the puzzle solving in Tears of the Kingdom isn't Zelda's strongest. I'm just gonna admit that. That's why, for me at least, this isn't number one. That's one of two major strong points against this game for me. The other, of course, being its story, and I'll get into that in a moment. But for now, puzzle solving. Dungeons in this game are a bit of an improvement over Breath of the Wild's Divine Beasts, though I don't think that's a bit of an achievement because anything pretty much would be. You could just have just the shrines and that would be an improvement. Honestly. Just cut the Divine Beasts, only oops all shrines, that would have been an improvement. The dungeons in this game are better. They are good. Two of them are really, really good. One of them is pretty good, and then the other one I'm just gonna straight up say fucking sucks. Water Temple is boring. It's not a good dungeon in any stretch of the imagination. The Wind Temple is not a great dungeon itself, but the lead up, as you see on screen right now, this is part of the lead up to the dungeon. It is so fucking cool to be climbing up into the sky from ground level. Like, normally you get into the sky through like launch towers, but this one you have to like climb a mountain and then like work your way all the way up into the top of this like blizzard up in the sky. Also have to loop this music because it is over. Wow, I didn't think I was going to spend this much time on this. It's just phenomenal. I love the introduction to the Wind Temple. Fire Temple and Lightning Temple, the dungeons themselves, are really good as well. Like I said, Wind Temple itself is just alright. It's just made up for a lot by the lead up to it. Lead up to Fire Temple is really cool. There's this huge thing that appears. Actually, I'm not going to tell you too much about it if you haven't played, but big boss spawns in, and it's not the dungeon boss, and you have to fight it, and it's cool. I really liked that, and maybe that was helped a bit by it being my first dungeon, but I just really enjoyed it. It felt like a traditional dungeon through and through. The lead up and the dungeon itself, it was good. And then Lightning Temple, it had a couple of really good moments. I would say it's less good than Fire Temple, but it was still really good in my eyes. Now, the rewards for these dungeons arguably are further items in this game, which are your champions that follow you around. You've probably seen it if you've been paying attention to the clips and you're not familiar with the game. Champions are, well, their descendants, rather, that is to say, are a bit of a mixed bag. I love all of their abilities. I don't think there's a single bad ability in the bunch. But it's using them that is kind of a pain in the ass. It's not a button. Don't know why it's not. They had that whole, like, circle wheel, and they put a fucking button on there to open the map, which was already mapped to just, like, pressing plus. So, like, for some reason, opening the map had 2 ways to access it for no reason. Could have been the champions button there to access your champion menu or something, but c'est la vie, I guess. Their solution was you have to walk over to them. But also the champions like to give you space. They don't like to be standing on top of you. Sometimes. Other times they'll be standing deliberately in your way, and then you'll be activating their ability when you didn't mean to. When you're just trying to get to an enemy. It was such a bizarre decision to have them walk around. I mean, having them walk around itself isn't the problem necessarily. It's just, I don't like that I have to walk up to them and press A. That's the real problem, right? So, other than that, your other abilities, believe it or not, we didn't even finish that topic. You have the fusion, which basically fully addresses my personal complaint with the durability system, which was the durability system. You know, I understood what it was there, but it felt forced in a lot of ways in Breath of the Wild, right? I didn't really feel like the game needed the system. I get what it did, you know. When my weapon breaks and there's a new weapon in front of me, it makes me try something new. But I'm not going to sit here and act like Breath of the Wild had a shit ton of weapon variety. There were 3 weapon classes, and then everything else was just a skin of one another with different stats. In this, it's the same as that. However, the fuse ability puts a different spin on things. You can make... It's essentially crafting in this game. You can turn any weapon, which all weapons in the game, except for a few that you find in the underworld, are basically just some of the worst fucking things you've ever seen in your life. They're useless, do 0 damage, die very quickly, like the durability on them is ass, and it sounds like a recipe for disaster. Using Fuse puts the durability to maybe a little bit better. Not by much, I'm not gonna lie to you, it's not by much, but just a little bit better than the durability in Breath of the Wild, or maybe even they're about the same. I would say at worst it's the same, but I personally felt like it was maybe a little better. I don't have any stats, just instinct here. But what changes though is the way that you craft these things together. You can combine 2 weapons to make like a really long weapon, or like a sword that you swing and does immense damage, because guess what? You glued a fucking Hinox horn to it, and now this thing does 800 damage. Not really, but like it does immense numbers, right? So I love the experimentation with the crafting. After you figure it out and like game the system, it's less interesting, I'm not gonna lie. There are definitely like things you should and shouldn't fuse together. You know, if you put like a stick of meat on your sword, it's like, okay, it's funny the first time you do it, and then it's like there's no actual reason to do it because it's not a good... It adds 1 attack power, and I don't think increases the durability by much. So, you know, not really a reason to do it. But what if you added a frozen stake to your shield? Now that sounds like bullshit, but actually that lets your shield slide better, and you can do shield surfing way better than you could without it. So it's little things that like that and the experimentation around it that became addicting for me. But if you just look up what's the best thing to fuse and you don't play around with it, then yeah, the system will be kind of stale. I can see that. And I don't blame anyone who does that, by the way. Like, I would do that if I didn't, like, record the gameplay. I think, like, I tried to keep things interesting, even though Tears of the Kingdom, much like when I was talking about Lethal Company, how playing, like, mega popular games doesn't do numbers for me. Yeah, Tears of the Kingdom was more or less mostly me playing the game alone. Sometimes I literally didn't even play it live. Just because, like, setting up a live chat just would have been more effort, and, you know, all that jazz. But I still immensely enjoyed this game. If I've been able to talk your ear off this long about it, I think it should say how much I like about the game. Before we move on, we must talk about the story. More specifically, let's talk about how the director, producer Aichi Aonuma, not the director, a lot of people mislabel him as the director. He did not direct this game. It's just the producer. But even still, he has a major hand in the development of it. And he says, according to his own opinion, that respecting the previous Zelda games' continuity is not important to him. And not only that, he also had a whole separate thing where he was like, I don't understand why people like the old Zelda games or want one of those. That's a whole separate discussion. I've kind of already had it with you before. I'm not going to go into that here, but I will say it's really disappointing how pathetic Tears of the Kingdom story is. It gives a really, really solid first impression that threw me for a loop. I kind of had the opposite opinion that I did to F-Zero 99 as a whole to Tears of the Kingdom story. Whereas initially I was like, oh, this is really good. And by the end of it, I was like, this kind of fucking sucked. I'm sorry to say, I just didn't care about what Zelda did in the past. And, you know, it all feels so disconnected. I'm not a part of that story. That shit happened without me. And I get it's made to allow for players to be able to get to the end of the game whenever they want. But if that's, you know, if that's what's holding them back from telling an interesting story, I don't think I need that in another Zelda game. I just don't. I'm fine with it being open world, but I don't want it to suffer because, quite frankly, yeah, Tears of the Kingdom story sucks. It felt like there was no, like, writers or, like, there was, like, no board meetings or, like, storyboarding for any of it. I mean, I'm sure there was, of course, not to get, like, too dramatic with you, but, like, it just felt that way. There was no continuity with the rest of the series, and it shows. No wonder Aonuma said that in the interview, because it's real. Like, they hype up Ganondorf being this thing, and then they don't even acknowledge anything that Ganondorf did before. They act like he's this entirely new person, and no one's ever heard of him before. But, like, is it at the beginning of the timeline? Is it at the end of the timeline? Well, it doesn't really matter to him, because, you know, he's just here to make a game. And what is playable, is one of the best games I've ever played. But the story itself is a huge letdown. I love stories in games. A game with a gripping narrative can be far more enjoyable to me than a game that is fun. I mean, of course I love to play fun games. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you that the first time I played Xenoblade, I was in love with its combat systems, and that's why I played the game. Holy fuck. I went through that video twice, and I'm still not done with it. Alright, one more time on the music. Other than that, you know, I don't really have much else, I guess, to add on the topic of the story, other than to say it was pathetic. It was, I think, the single worst Zelda story to date. And even Breath of the Wild, I think, had a more gripping narrative than this one. The final fight in this game is really fucking good. Love it. Final dungeon's okay, but just like the fight itself, I loved it. I hated Breath of the Wild's final boss. But, you know, Ganondorf in this game is a worthy final boss. He feels climactic, it feels epic, and the final phase of it all is immense. It's great. And the music is wonderful, too. But, hot damn, there's just like, I'm not going to go into the story spoilers here, but I'll just say this. there's a thing that they do to Zelda in this game. Everyone who plays the game knows exactly what I'm talking about. Zelda did a thing in this game's story that was supposed to have like this emotional impact and weight. And then the ending just undoes all of that. Literally undoes it. Says, oops, this actually, it's okay, it's fine. It didn't happen. Well, it did, but it didn't. You know, the repercussions of it are not real. I think Zelda, like, I get that they're trying to make the story accessible, but, like, come on. Do people really feel alienated by, like, a story having, like, a bittersweet ending? Do people walk away from those, you know, being like, man, I just would have liked it if this character survived, you know? I can't believe they killed off this character. They ruined the movie for me. You know? I mean, I'm sure there are people like that, I guess, considering they made this decision, but I just don't get it. And I see a lot of, like, discourse for the game being like, it has to be one or the other. Good gameplay or good story. I say, why not both? I think both can happen. It's just, this was not that. One last thing I will say about this whole game, and then we'll finally move on, Jesus, is, I think the game is a bit too big. I think the open world can stay. I think, you know, 2D Zelda, 3D Zelda, and open world Zelda can all coexist, contradictory to what Aonuma thinks. But even then, they're going to continue doing the open world, whether or not my opinion is whatever. But at least for what I believe, I think what they should do is make another open world Zelda. Sure, fine. Just make the world so much smaller. Like, I get it. For some reason, gamers back in the day used to be like, yo, this game's 7 times the size of Skyrim. It's so huge and massive. And I'm just sitting here like, fuck. I enjoyed every minute I played of it, but goddamn, was there just too much to fucking do. I think the game could have, you know, a lot of people I know personally told me they found 120 shrines in Breath of the Wild to be too much. There's just too much. They're not interested in doing more if the next game has it. Well, guess what? The next game has more. And there's 152 of them. What the absolute fuck? I think the ratio of, like, blessing shrines might be a little higher. But even then, like, come on, there's so many of them. And I get it. They needed to populate the sky, the overworld, and the ground. I don't think that, like, this is something that they should have changed for this game necessarily. I just think for the next game, I want it to be reined in. Because this is just too fucking big. And, you know, I guess the solution to this is learn what you're not interested in doing. I would say, in retrospect, it's not fully worth getting the reward for doing all 152 shrines. It was kind of funny, but I didn't really use it, the reward, too much, so it's alright, whatever. It's a step up, I think, from the Tunic of the Wild, at least, but it's still not really worth it. And so, if I ever replay Tears of the Kingdom all the way through, I don't think I'm gonna 100% it, all the shrines, at least. So there you go. That was my nearly half-hour long discussion about fucking Tears of the Kingdom, and it's not even my number one. I'm already hearing my voice start to go out, so hang on. Let me grab a drink, and then we'll hit up number 3 here. This next one I don't think I'll have nearly as much to say. So thank God for that, at least. But it should be stated that, from here on, I do fully believe that these are better releases than Tears of the Kingdom. So, not trying to be like controversial or whatever about it, but yeah, I just genuinely believe that. And we're going to start with number 3. Metroid Prime Remastered. It's another game that I played offline. Why is it buffering? All right, we'll just start there. So, remember when I was talking about games that didn't look like Switch games? Holy fucking shit. This game actually looks like a PS5 game. I don't think I'm exaggerating that because I've heard other people say that. I thought maybe, when I had that thought on my own, that I was, being a bit of a Nintendo fanboy. No, this game looks incredible. I'm kind of sad that I have to put this filter over the footage that I am using here to, mask it. They'll just, ID claim my system, and I'm not necessarily trying to make money from this. I just want my video to be visible, and I wanted something to be on screen here. And I played the game off stream. Didn't beat it, but I got all the way to the end. Literally right before Metroid Prime in Meta Ridley. I don't know why I didn't finish it, but I just never went back and did that final stream, I guess, or played session, not stream. Regardless of that, Metroid Prime 1 is not my favorite Metroid Prime. That goes to 2. Typically, I've said my order is 2, 3, then 1. So, what's this doing above Tears of the Kingdom? Well, turns out it's still a really damn good game. I'll say they didn't really change too much as far as the balancing, as far as I'm aware. But what they did do was they added twin stick controls, which is the way to play, let's be honest. There's gyro too, and it works. I played the game mostly with twin stick, if I recall correctly. I do remember having remember when I was talking about Pikmin 2 having some issues with the Wii Remote? I had even more issues when I played the Prime Trilogy with the Wii Remote. It is more precise aiming, but boy howdy did my Wii Remote desync from the sensor bar so many times when I played the Trilogy version. So having just dual stick on its own is incredible. But even more incredible than that is just the way this game looks. I just want to stress that. This game is seriously the best, undoubtedly looking Switch game. Seriously could have been a PS4 or 5 game. I know the trick that they did behind it is mostly just because it's a bunch of enclosed rooms. They're not rendering an entire open world. Sure. But even then, fuck. These new devs at Retro really impressed me with everything. And if you haven't played this, just look at, some of the effects on, the ice, for example. There's a missile behind, a sheet of ice that you can't get until you have, I think it's the plasma cannon. And the way the light of the missile bends around the ice is so realistic and pretty to look at. I just don't know how they pulled it off on the Switch. If Metroid Prime was my favorite game of all time, this would probably be my number 1 slot, truth be told. But personally, it's not, and it's still really good though. If you've never played a Metroid Prime game, this is the way to do it. And the fact that it was shadow dropped after a direct was insanity. You had to be there if you weren't. You're never going to be able to relive that unless you were there. So, that's pretty much all I have for you on this game. Play Metroid Prime if you haven't. This is absolutely the best way to play. And, I just really, really enjoyed this game. And, Really want to see Prime 2 and 3 in this engine if we can, but, you know, I'm not holding my breath on that one. So, number 2. There's only so many games left that came out this year. And this one is DLC. Yep. For my number 2 slot, we have Xenoblade Chronicles Future Redeemed. The final episode in the grand epic that is my favorite game series of all time. And not only that, Xenoblade 3 really kind of is my favorite game. And this game, and in the way it expands on Xenoblade 3, is kind of what elevates it to that level. Xenoblade 3, when it came out last year, I was unsure how I was going to feel about it after some time passed, and plenty of time has passed for me to collect my thoughts. I think there's some elements to it where the story is kind of unnecessarily contrived, and the most disappointing thing to me about it, the base game, was there were so many questions I had about, like, what happened to Shulk? What happened to Rex? What happened to Elvis? What happened to... who are these founders and all that? And this answered all of it. All of the questions that I personally had. Of course, you know, there's still other things to ask. Maybe some plot holes here and there that I think weren't fully addressed. But, I mean... the Annihilation events was a thing that I didn't feel like was explained all that well. They even touch on that a little bit here. They technically did address it, they just didn't do a good job at saying what was going on with it in the base game. And this does a better job kind of explaining that. And this really earns its title as Future Redeemed because my biggest gripe with Xenoblade 3, the base game, was I hated its ending. The final boss itself was a slog. It was not fun. The character that was the final boss, not interesting. And the ending itself got spoiled for me, so a lot of the elements that were supposed to hit didn't hit. And so what I was left with was just my raw emotions after that, and I didn't really enjoy the ending. But this, well, I'm not going to say what happens, of course, but let's just say, yeah, Future is redeemed. They didn't necessarily make the final boss of the base game more interesting, but everything else surrounding the ending is fixed. As far as I'm concerned, like plot and narrative. It made fan-favorite characters come back in a way where it doesn't feel overly fan-servicey. There's definitely lines like Rex says, "I like your attitude, kiddo. Leave it to Uncle Rex." And stuff like that. And, of course, you know, Shulk has the line where he goes, "I'm not really feeling it." And that was hilarious to hear for the first time. So, of course, there's some levels of fan service here, but the levels of fan service that are here don't feel like cheap. It gives me all the questions that I wanted to ask about Xenoblade 3 and gives me those answers. And not only that, I guess this could be interpreted as a spoiler, but I don't fully consider it as one. I guess tune away if you don't want to know this, but 3, 2, 1. Future Redeemed also makes Xenosaga canon to this series. And I think Gears. I'm not too sure about that one, but Saga at the very least is very apparent. And Xenoblade X is now also part of the canon, as well as they mentioned Project Exodus at one point. And that's all I'll say about that, but just like the fact that that is a thing. I mean, I guess that is a spoiler, so sorry if you didn't finish this yet, but It's just so fucking good. It really is my favorite game of all time, and I will say Xenoblade as a series is hard to recommend because when you look at it and you look at the combat, it looks so complicated. There's numbers flying everywhere. There's so many status effects happening. The UI is not at all intuitive. But like seriously, I do fully believe after the release of Future Redeemed that Xenoblade 3 has become my favorite game of all time. Which is weird that I only put this in the number 2 slot, right? Well, we'll get into that in a bit, but the truth of the matter is they did this series so much justice. The music is as good as you would ever expect from Xenoblade Chronicles. Some of the best you'll ever hear, as far as I'm concerned. And if you do take the time, and I highly stress this, if you've never played this series, here's what I'll say. If you give these games a shot one day, take your time with it. I know a lot of people say, or they hear that the game can be beaten in 80 hours, but the average person takes 100 hours, and so most people try to play the game at the pace of the 80-hour player when I talk about Xenoblade 1. You should take your time. Every time I see people rush through the game, you know, they end up skipping tutorials, they end up not fully absorbing the combat mechanics because they just want to get through it. And I get it. It has a really gripping narrative, and I was that way too when I first played Xenoblade 1. And you know what? I didn't like Xenoblade 1 that much when I first played it. Blasphemy to hear nowadays, but it's true. I said this when I played Xenoblade 1 on stream, but me playing it on stream, I think was the first time I beat it, or the second time. It might have been the second time. It was the second. Sorry. But, yeah, I didn't really beat that game. I tried to so many times growing up, but, like, I just wanted to get through it. That's what I was trying to do. I was trying to play the game to get through it. And so I just didn't. I just looked up the cutscenes myself, enjoyed the narrative a lot, but didn't play the game. And to be fair, I'm not doing the game justice, I think, by describing it to you this way, but the tutorials don't help. I think you should, if you want to get into this series, you gave it a shot, and you're like, man, the story seems interesting, but I just can't get into the gameplay. My advice to you is there are really good comprehensive videos out there. I think I might be misremembering the name of the YouTuber, but I think it's Anel that did really good Xenoblade 1 tutorial videos that helped me understand the combat better. Like, I didn't know how to play Melia at all in Xenoblade 1. And this, his video fucking changed that. I became a god at the game. I did the super bosses all, like, first try. Because, like, I finally understood the combat. But yeah, with Xenoblade especially, it's a long game because it's meant to be a long game. And I'll see a lot of people play it. I've seen some streams of the game where people are like, fuck, I just want to get through it. And with Xenoblade 3, especially Future Redeemed, it has some really good side content, actually, as well. Future Redeemed itself, if you know what you're doing, can be a 12-hour game. That is true. But you should count on it being like a 20 or 25-hour game, because it's 12 hours if you just grind your way or, like, know how to cheese it really well. And there are some cheese strats. Double Spinning Edge Rex is fucking busted. I'll say that much. And I fucking love that as well at the same time, though. But, yeah, just in general, seriously, if you've never played a Xenoblade game, I do think you can play Xenoblade 3 on its own without having played 1 and 2. But you shouldn't play Future Redeemed, I will say, unless you have played 1, 2, and 3. This is meant to be the final chapter even though it's technically a prequel to 3, it is meant to be the last thing that you play. It is very clear that Tetsuya Takahashi is going to take the series in a completely different direction. I theorize that the next game we get from Takahashi will be Xeno, and then a different word. So it won't be another Blade game. Even though they say Xenoblade's not done, you know, it goes back into what I said about the Xeno saga being back into the canon. I think because there's some plot elements of Xenosaga that I understand, like I haven't played the game, so I don't fully know the full context, but as I understand, there's like a thing that happens at the end of Xenosaga 3, and then you get your resolution for that in this game. Now, there's kind of a long story behind that. If you're not familiar, Xenosaga is a PS2 RPG series made by Tetsuya Takahashi. Back in the day, the games didn't sell that well, so he had to move on and work on other things at Monolith. And then he makes the Xenoblade series, and it does really well. And so he wants to reintroduce this stuff back into the canon. And so there might be a couple of retcons here and there, but in general, this is supposed to lead into, I guess, what happens after Xenosaga 3. So that makes me excited for what's to come. What it'll be called. It might be Xenoblade 4. It might be Xenosaga 4. I don't know. It might be Xeno Spirits or something like that. I don't know. I just threw that out there. But, like, it could be something entirely, new and made up. And it'll still be canon. And if you don't know what I mean, well, it's a big investment, but play this game and you'll find out why. And that's all I have to say about that. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Future Redeemed would be my game of the year if it wasn't for this next game being just so damn adorable. It's not my favorite game of all time. But it's, you know what it is. Come on. It's Pikmin 4. We're gonna bookend this stream front to back with Pikmin. That's right. Number 10 on the Gabe's First was Pikmin 2. Number 1 on Release Relay, Pikmin 4. Oh, how the turns tabled. Pikmin fucking 4 is phenomenal. It is better than I could have ever asked. I liked Pikmin 3 a lot. I wouldn't say that I liked Pikmin nearly as much as I did Xenoblade, but I enjoyed Pikmin a lot. And my opinion was, Pikmin 1 was fine, Pikmin 2 was good, and then Pikmin 3 was great. So, the series just gets better the bigger the number. Hey Pikmin is not good because there are no numbers. I've actually never played Hey Pikmin, so no real opinion there. But Pikmin 4 continues that trend and is the biggest, best Pikmin as far as I'm concerned. It has pretty much every enemy that you would want to return returns, and the ones that don't return, the only things I can think of are a couple of variations of the long legs, and then that tangerine tank thing from Pikmin 2, and I'm fine that that's not here. In general, otherwise, this is the game that had Ochi in it. Do I need to say anything more than that? Alright, well thanks for watching. No. Truthfully though, Pikmin 4 is seriously just a joy to play. It's not too long, but it is longer than Pikmin 2 even. It was like 30 hours. So, it's longer than Future Redeemed. It's longer than Pikmin 2. It's decently long for a Pikmin game, you know, especially with Pikmin 1 being literally 5 hours. But I mean, there's just so much charm, and it looks great. I think Pikmin 3 maybe looks a little better at times, but even still, this game is just phenomenal looking, and it was a joy start to finish. If you've played some Pikmin games in the past, if you haven't played 4, I would recommend you try this one. Maybe if you didn't like them, maybe this one might be the one to change your mind. Now, what I will say is the demo doesn't do the best job at helping you figure out if you're gonna like this game. I'm not gonna lie. It's weird, because the demo's long as fuck. The demo's like, well, technically as long as you want it to be, but it can be like up to 4 hours. That's how long it was for me. It could be longer than that if you do certain things kind of slowly, I guess, but in general, the demo doesn't do a great job because it's pretty tutorial heavy with things that don't really need to be tutorialized. Where Xenoblade kind of gets complicated because its tutorials in Xenoblade 2 don't do a great job explaining things. In this game, the tutorials are kind of bad because they explain things that don't need to be explained. And there's a lot of them. I will say, you know, since I made such a big deal about the story in Tears of the Kingdom not living up to the hype for me, you know, this game does kind of also retcon Pikmin 1, 2, and 3. I'm less attached to the stories of those games, so maybe that's why I can give it the pass. But in general, I think Pikmin 4 is just really the best that there is in the series. You know, you get to create your own character, and they don't really have much of a personality, but the rest of the crew more than makes up for it, I think. The Dandori challenges are there, and they are very, very challenging, so if you want a hard Pikmin game, it's absolutely there. This game continues my hatred for Louis, of course, and I will not elaborate further in that if you don't know what I mean. And in general, this is just immense. It brings back the Piclopedia. It brings back all the enemies you could have ever wanted, and some new ones. The new types of Pikmin are okay, but it brings back every other type of Pikmin. This is like more or less the most ultimate Pikmin ever has been, in that like it's the best of everything we've seen so far, plus more. And that's pretty much the best, simplest review I can give of this game. It's absolutely worth your time to check out. If you passed up on this, do yourself a favor. If you're looking for something cozy, this is absolutely a game for that. And if you're looking for something challenging, it's also absolutely that if you want it. If you're just doing the main story, by the way, if you don't care about like the post game or any of that, it's not too long. It's like 15 hours. But yeah, doing everything, which I do actually recommend. This is a game where like I do 100% games a lot, and I don't always recommend you do that. This is a game where I would recommend most people 100% it, because it's just worth it. But you don't get a good reward. It's just the game is fun all the way through. It doesn't get like dull while you're doing that 100% process, and that's I think what I like so much about it. So there you go. That's Pikmin 4, and that is my game of the year 2023. In a year as packed as this one with so many great games, I'm honestly baffled that like all of the top like 6 games could have been my game of the year. A top 7! I said that about Pizza Tower too! They really all could have been my top game, truthfully. But you know, this is what it may not be the arguable best game out of the bunch, but it's the one that, as a game on its own, I felt the most strong about. And I didn't fully feel comfortable making DLC be my game of the year. Even though Future Redeemed really is a game in and of itself. Like I said, it's like 20-hour campaign. It's long, fucking 4 times the length of Call of Duty's campaign. So there you go. Despite that, I just felt like it was appropriate for me to give this title to Pikmin 4 this year. You earned it, buddy. Congratulations. All right. So on to my honorable mentions for the release relay. Now, I played some other things too, like Street Fighter 6. I was going to put that on this list, but quite frankly, the Street Fighter 6 logo is so ugly that when I tried to put this like effect that I put on these other logos, it looked like shit. So here's me mentioning Street Fighter 6. I didn't get the full game yet. At some point I will. I enjoyed the demo that I played for it immensely. Eventually I'll get to that game. I'm just not the biggest fighting game fan. So, at some point we'll get to that. But let's talk about the Mario Kart 8 Booster Course Pass, which finished up just a couple months ago. I don't think it was good enough that I should have placed it on my top 10, which is why it's here. But I still can't sit here and say that I don't think that, also I forgot to bring the music back, whoops. I can't sit here and think that, adding, 48 new tracks to the game isn't damn impressive. Like doubling the game's course roster. Of course, strictly talking about what came out this year, because we already talked about Booster Course Pass in last year's Gabe Awards, if I'm not mistaken. This year's Booster Course Pass, Wave 4 through 6, had some good courses, but also introduced characters into the mix, which was unexpected and very much appreciated. I complained about that early on in Mario Kart 8 streams. And of course we got Birdo, we got Wiggler, we got P Piranha, Funky Kong, Peach-ette, and Diddy Kong, right? That's all of them. Oh, and a shit ton of Mii costumes too. Which, honestly, those were all cool. I love them. Rosalina's Ice World is, however, shit. I hate that course. Which is why I put the music in here. No, it's fine. Honestly, some people are gonna love some of the course inclusions. Others people will hate some of them. I'm, of course, disappointed by no inclusion of Airship Fortress nor Wario Coliseum from the GameCube. But it's fine. I still can't sit here and say and try to be like, well, because this one particular course wasn't in there, that the whole thing was shit. Because I don't think that's true. Feel free to disagree, I guess, but for me, it's, if you have online, there's no reason why you shouldn't get this Booster Course Pass. If you just kind of casually play Mario Kart 8, you don't pay for NSO any tier, and you just like to play it, it's like, okay, well, here's the thing. All of the courses, yes, all of them, were courses from Tour. The game may try to lie to you and tell you some of the courses are Mario Kart 8 originals. No, they were made for Tour. They're literally gaslighting you by saying that they were made for Mario Kart 8. They were not. They were made for Tour. Some of them came out first in Mario Kart 8, sure, but they were made for Tour. Let's be honest here. Now, all that out of the way, all of these courses are courses that you may have played on before if you are a Mario Kart fan. So do you need it? No, not really. Should you get it if you play this game casually every now and then with your friends? Depends on how casually. If you do it online, well, you don't actually need to buy the DLC if you play online. Weirdly enough, they just give you the courses for free. Like you can vote for them if they show up. I don't think you can vote for them if you're in a friend lobby, but your other friends can vote on them. You can still race on them. You're not gated out of them necessarily. So that's actually a positive. The characters, they are more or less just skins. They have stats that are kind of invisible. They make slight differences, but it's not really that necessary, right? So it's not too important for you to do all that. So Mario Kart 8 Booster Course Pass is pretty good. I'm going to go pretty fast through these next three because I don't have a shit ton to say about them. Booster Course Pass was, if any of these, was the closest to making it on the list. But Nick All-Star Brawl 2, I played for the first time 4 days ago and added to this list. I am not joking. That game is surprisingly good. Now, granted, I don't actually know if it really deserves this position or not, but I just need an excuse to talk about it for a moment, I guess. But it actually is way better than the first game. I played the first game and it was just like, it's alright. It's okay. The lack of voice acting didn't bother me. It was more the gameplay was just in the first one. It was functional. It did what it was supposed to be. It was a Nickelodeon Smash Brothers-like game. It did that. The second game just feels fun to play. And not only that, it also has direct GameCube controller support. And by that I mean, you plug in a GameCube controller adapter to your PC. And I'm sure this works on Switch too. But it will actually show the buttons of the GameCube controller on the UI elements that show buttons. So it knows that I'm using a GameCube controller. So many other Steam games don't even recognize the GameCube controller, let alone are directly compatible with it. So that was kind of cool. If you're an immense Smash fan, I'm sure you probably already have played this game, but I'd actually say if you're like a casual Smash fan like myself, I don't play the game competitive in any shape or form, this is worth your time. Granted, that is if you like Nickelodeon. If you don't give a fuck about Nickelodeon at all, you didn't grow up with any Nick shows, then okay, sure. I could see why this maybe isn't necessary, but even just if you're a fan of a couple of them, Ren and Stimpy's there. There are some notable exceptions to the roster. Don't know why they cut Powdered Toast Man and Hugh Neutron, but alright. There's DLC coming for the game. I know it was leaked what is coming to that, but I'm gonna cross my fingers anyways and hope Hugh and Powdered Toast Man still come to that. WarioWare Move It is okay. It's probably my least favorite WarioWare game, but still a good game. It is 2 hours though. It's not worth $60. I think it's worth $50. That's the price, but even then, I'm like, that's a $30 game. If you ever see it for $30, pick it up. But it's good. It's fine. The motion controls are what gets me the most. The Joy-Con aren't great little pieces of technology when it comes to motion controls. I have plenty of issues. Just call back to the steak minigame where I was literally on camera showing you that I was doing the motion the game was asking, and then it wasn't doing that. It just wasn't reading the input. So that's kind of disappointing, but this is also Kevin Afghani's first appearance as Wario, so he did an alright job. I think he did a better job as Mario and Luigi, but he still didn't do a bad job. I think Charles Martinet's best role was his role as Wario. I'm going to loop this video because the next video is meant to be my ending video. He did an alright job as Wario. I think Charles Martinet is still my go-to Wario, but Mario and Luigi are fine enough. So Kevin will probably grow on me over time, and he'll probably take the character in a new direction, which I'm down. I just need some more time with it, I think. And then lastly, Minecraft Legends. I was looking forward to this game and then played it. It's alright. It's a little RTS Minecraft style game, like art style. It's not at all Minecraft as far as the gameplay is concerned. It's just Minecraft and IP is all. It's fine enough. There were some updates that came out to it. I didn't feel like going back to it, but I still enjoyed the game enough. And considering, how rare it is for me to play new games, I figured I should at least, even if I didn't love the game necessarily, I should still put it on here just to say, hey, I did play this year. Now, obviously, gamers, I didn't play Baldur's Gate. I didn't play Spider-Man. I didn't play Lies of P. I didn't play Resident Evil 4. I didn't play so many games. I didn't play FF16. That's what I kind of wanted to play, actually. One day, I'll play these games. But that's why we have Games Firsts. We run through all these games, and these were fine. For my top 3 or top 10 of what I enjoyed throughout playing the year. So those games that I just mentioned, Baldur's Gate and all that, maybe one day I'll check them out. I don't know actually particularly about Baldur's Gate, but all I do know is that Lord of the Rings Gollum is actually the real game of the year. I lied to you, it's not Pikmin 4. It's Lord of the Rings Gollum, sorry. Can you run through all of them again? Yeah, I was gonna do that anyways, but one more time before we move on to the finale. I'll give you all of the top 10 for the year. So we have number 10 at Kirby's Return to Dreamland. Number 9 is Lethal Company. Number 8 is the Super Mario RPG remake. Number 7 is Pizza Tower. 6 was Super Mario Bros. Wonder. 5 was F-Zero 99. 4 was The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. 3 was Metroid Prime. 2, Xenoblade Chronicles Future Redeemed. And Pikmin 4 at number 1. So that, my friends, is the end of my discussion here with you. All that's left is next year. By the way, if you want any further thoughts on these things, if you came in late or what have you, the VOD will be up very shortly after I'm done with this. Of course, on Twitch, but also on YouTube, should you care to podcast that or whatever. I can give you more detailed thoughts on them other than just giving you the names. But 2024 is just a few days away. And I'm not really sure where I'm going to go from here. As far as my stream is concerned, and, I've mentioned this before, I put a little update video on it, but I'm planning on toning down, the amount of streams that I'm going to be doing within the next year. I'm going to move on to doing more voice acting projects. That's my main objective of what I want to do with my extra time. But also, I want to get back into video editing, video making. Streaming takes up a lot of my time, and I enjoy it. I'm super, super grateful for everyone who comes by and watches my show. Seriously. I know I don't often, end the streams with, thanks guys, like and subscribe. That's somewhat deliberate, but truthfully, I don't feel like I do a good enough job at expressing my thanks for the people who do stop by. And every time I mention, I get self-conscious whenever I admit that having no viewers sometimes can bum me out. But I also feel like I should be honest about it, And I don't say that necessarily as a way to be like, oh, please feel bad for me, because that's what makes me kind of regret saying it out loud. I feel like some people may interpret it that way, but genuinely, I really do appreciate everyone who stops by. Even if it's just for a couple minutes, if you lurk, I appreciate you. But, you know, I'm looking for something that's going to be a little bit more satisfying for myself, my own mental health, and just my general interests. Streaming has been a blast, and I don't plan to stop streaming. You're going to see, whether you like it or not, you're going to see me stream the Thousand Year Door remake. I will be streaming the next chat votes results, which, if you're not part of the Discord, I don't mean to advertise here after just getting all sentimental with you, but there is still a poll going for the game that will happen after Miitopia is finished. And right now there's a 3-way tie. So the only real reason why I'm mentioning this is I kind of need this tie to be broken. Otherwise I will die. Because that means I'll have to decide. And then it's like, okay, well, at that point, there's not a whole lot of a reason for the poll at that point, right? But, you know, whatever wins that poll in the end, you know, I plan to honor that stream and streams to come. You know, your boy's not going to go anywhere. I'm not vanishing off the face of the earth or anything like that. I don't want to do that, because regardless of however my streams do, I just enjoy streaming a lot. And it's just a really fun hobby for me. But it is just that, you know, I've never really wanted it to become like a job necessarily. I've wanted to do voice acting as a job over streaming. I wanted to make games over streaming. You know, playing them is one thing, but making them, to me, sounds even cooler. So, I've been doing streaming now for 3 years, and in just a week from today, it will be 10 years since I first started doing YouTube videos and content creation in general. I've been doing it since I was in high school. And, you know, I think after 10 years, and, you know, I never really took off with it, you know, in the same way that some other people did. I think that's my hint that the world or life or whatever is telling me, you know, there's something else that I'm supposed to be doing. So that's why we're going to be moving a little bit away from streaming. You'll still see me, you know, every now and then. I will be, you know, finishing the games that are in the CSR, and then there's new CSR that will happen. You know, 3 times a week I still think is pretty frequently. It's just 5 times a week, as I've been doing for the last 3 years. Just doesn't give me time to live. So that's where I'm kind of getting at with all this. And thank you for listening to my my sappy story here at the end of all of this. But when it comes to games coming out next year, you know, I don't have a lot that I'm looking forward to. Mostly it's Paper Mario and Final Fantasy VII, which I won't be able to get to Final Fantasy VII because I don't have a PS5, but, you know, at some point, I will eventually get to that. And then, you know, maybe there's a future insight for the Switch 2, Super Switch, whatever it may be called. The Switch Omulus, I don't know, whatever they'll call it. You know, I'll still be here. So, thank you everyone for stopping by for the Game Awards. Oh, sorry, the Gabe Awards 2023. I've been talking for 3.5 hours. I thought this was going to be shorter. My Gabe's First in 2023 went by really, really fast. And then I spent a long time talking about the release relay games. Which I didn't really force any extra conversation. Hell, I arguably didn't talk about certain things. So, yeah, Jeff will not be suing me. Thank God for that. I am going to go, though, because I'm sure you can hear it, but my voice is now hoarse from just nonstop talking for 3 hours straight. 3.5. So, thank you once again, everyone, so much for tuning in over the years. I hope that whatever I end up sticking to next will be just as entertaining, and that hopefully with the reduced amount of streams that people still decide to stop by every now and then, say hello, hang out for an evening. It's cool. I don't expect people to be here every day. Of course not. That's asking a lot, especially with the rate that I used to stream at. But yeah, I will see you guys again, not until next year. This is the final stream of the year for me. So I'm going to take this weekend, New Year's weekend, to just relax, live. I got a lot of plans. Going to hang out with some friends. So I'll see you on the 2nd of January for more Metopia. And then, when it comes to Halo 2, that's kind of just depends on when Caleb and I are able to schedule this at the same time. And Twilight Princess will continue, of course, as well. Thanks, Cody. That's really nice of you to say. Have a happy new year, everyone. And hopefully I'll see you soon.